Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Naruto Got Harem with Almighty Taimanin. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Sakura Igawa sighed to herself as she sat alone at a bar, staring absently down the bottom of her glass. Since she abruptly left her home, she wandered around rather aimlessly with no real destination in mind, trying to find ways to distract herself as her nightmare kept on replaying in her head over and over again. She then decided to start drinking some booze to numb that dull ache in her and drown out her feelings. So far it wasn't working. Why do I feel this way about Naruto-kun? It isn't fair. I don't want to hurt him or my sister's feelings, but it still hurts for me. She grumbled as she took another drink. I love my sister very much and I know she definitely has feelings for Naruto-kun. They see together really well, but is it wrong that I wish that Naruto-kun was mine? I want him, but I don't want to get between them. Why is it that the one person who could possibly be my first love has to be the only man that can't be mine? The woman lamented in her mind and knocked back yet another drink, her face reddening from the alcohol. Her musings and self-loathing were interrupted when a woman plopped herself down in the empty bar stool next to her and immediately ordered a bottle of some really strong booze. It seemed that the orange jet wasn't the only one having a rough time. Ugh, why me? Why did I have to wait too long? Now he's gone. The newcomer muttered to herself rather glumly as she drank straight from the bottle and slumped forward against the bar. You having guy troubles too? The tomboy Taimanin asked, since misery loves company as the old saying goes. The woman nodded slowly and gulped down some more of her drink with a sigh and then looked over towards the younger Igawa sister. Yeah, though it's my fault, not his. See, there was this guy I liked. He was younger than me, but damn did he mean the world to me. I wanted to confess my feelings to him, but I kept putting off over some excuse. I kept telling myself things like now isn't the time or just a while longer. Then I waited too long and somebody else claimed him before I could. I mean, I'm happy he found someone. I just wish that it could have been me. You know, I got nobody to blame but myself. The stranger muttered before taking another drink with a sorrowful expression. I'm in a pretty similar situation myself. My sister recently brought a guy home with her and I think I'm falling hard for him. I really like him, but I'm afraid of hurting him or my sister, and now I'm the one that's hurting on the inside. Last night, I had a nightmare where I tried to seduce him in my own sister's bed with her sleeping right there next to him. Then she woke up and was staring at me, judging me. He's so kind, caring, funny, and really cute. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. I feel kind of guilty. Sakura mumbled with a frown, causing the other woman to laugh softly. That does sound cliche. But sometimes love doesn't make sense, right? I know it's probably stupid, but I really miss him and I just wish I could have at least had him. At any rate, maybe you need to have a sit down with your sister, try and talk things through. If anything else, you could clear the air. It'd be better than bottling things up and waiting till it's too late. Trust me, I waited too late and I regret it now. I just hope that he's happy. Name's Anko, by the way. Anko Mitarashi. The now identified Anko spoke with a sad smile and extended a hand to the orangeette, who accepted and shook it gently. Sakura Igawa. And yeah, I should probably talk to her. Thanks. Oh, and if you don't mind me asking, who was the lucky guy you had feelings for? She asked curiously, wanting to keep the conversation going and take her mind off her worries. Anko was silent for a moment as she pondered whether or not to tell the orange-haired woman about her crush. Then it said in her mind just who she was talking to and asked, "Whoa, back up, Igawa. Are you Asagi Igawa's younger sister? That's Sakura Igawa." "Yep, that's me. Why, you a fan or something?" Sakura asked, and then noticed that her new associate had fallen strangely silent, prompting her to ask, is something wrong at her question. Anko seemed hesitant to speak further as her grip tightened around the bottle she was holding, her face and demeanor suddenly becoming hostile. "Yeah, you Taimanin. You guys pretty much get whatever you want at the snap of your fingers. You have it all. Money, fame, power, popularity. Hell, they're even making a damned video game about you people. If that weren't enough, you've got your pick of whoever you want to marry. Your life is so damn perfect. And what do us regular people get? We're the ones who work our asses off and have to settle for less because we don't have your abilities or money. Or we have to up to you because of all the special treatment you get, on the Hokage's orders no less. What is it about you guys that make you so special?" the woman growled out, her tone bitter and resentful. The orangeette blinked and was a little taken aback by her companion's sudden change in attitude and the rant directed at her, and raised her hands up in a placating manner. It wasn't uncommon for many shinobi to feel some sort of envy or jealousy towards the Taimanin, especially with the fact that the majority of women who join the organization have the pick of the litter when it comes to finding a man. Not to mention there was all the special privileges and luxuries they got simply because they were Taimanin. As popular and famous as they were, there were some that still resented them. "Hey no, I serve the village just the same as you. I was ready to lay down my life for the village when I volunteered for the Taimanin initiative. I didn't ask for special treatment for favors, it just came." "Clearly you're upset, and wait, the guy you love, did a Taimanin claim him? Is that why you're angry?" Sakura questioned at the end as she connected the dots. Still, it seemed a little strange that she suddenly lashed out like that, and only after she mentioned her name. "Why was that?" "Yes, I ain't Taimanin, and I can't do shit about it. Anko spoke bitterly as she slammed some cash on the counter and then marched off, bottle in hand with some tears brimming in her eyes. "Oh," Sakura said simply as she watched the purple-haired woman go and felt her heart clench in sympathy. She could definitely relate to the woman's situation, having someone she liked being claimed by someone else. "Man, the world sure is a small place. I guess I'm not the only one who has to deal with this crap," the Igawa girl thought sadly inside. After that encounter, the orange-haired Taimanin took another drink, now feeling more alone and more miserable. Still, she did bring up a point. Maybe she should at least talk to her sister before she ended up crossing a line. Who knows, maybe Asagi could help her sort out her feelings. Regardless, she couldn't hold it in for much longer. Her musings were broken when she looked up towards a nearby television and saw that her favorite talk show was on the air. The host was currently introducing this episode's special guest for the night. "Allow me to introduce Naruto Uzumaki," the host announced, prompting Sakura to do a spit-take and stare in shock as the blonde teen was revealed to the studio audience. "And Naruto-kun, what is he doing there?" she mentally cried out in surprise, quickly wiping her mouth as she watched the program with great interest. She couldn't help but wonder how this was going to play out. Minutes earlier, Crimson Tower Studios. Naruto sighed to himself, inhaling deeply as he felt a pit in his stomach, feeling both excitement and anxiety as he stared across the stage. Once he was cued in, he'd make his entrance and take his seat next to the host Aishwarya. Still, he couldn't help but fidget nervously as he glanced at the live audience packed into the studio and the numerous cameras that would be broadcasting him across the entirety of Fire Country, maybe even beyond the borders of his own country. Asagi was kneeling in front of his, readjusting the tiny microphone that was clipped to the lapel of his suit. She had a kind and reassuring smile on her face as she whispered to him, "You'll be fine. Just focus on Aishwarya when you're on stage and pretend that nobody else is there. If things become too much for you, you can call me over and I'll pull the plug. I'll be right here for you the whole time like a guardian angel." He rapidly nodded, his nervousness lessened by her words as he felt a bit of comfort from the older Igawa sister. She was right. He needed to keep his focus on the job at hand. This was his first appearance on national TV, and he needed to make a good impression. "Thanks, Asagi. That really helps. I appreciate it," the blonde thanked, receiving a sweet smile in response. She then pulled him in for a hug, pressing his head against her generous bust. His hands instinctively wrapped around her waist as she gave him a quick peck on the lips. She then broke off the embrace just as some fanfare began playing when Aishwarya herself took to the stage, wiggling her fingers towards the cameras and blowing ease towards the audience as she spoke. "Good evening, all my lovely viewers. Who do you love and who loves you?" the dark-skinned woman asked as she put a hand to her ear. "Aishwarya," the audience shouted back, causing the talk show host to laugh and pose in a Y manner. "Yes, that's me, Aishwarya Lai, and tonight is a very special episode. We have a rather magnificent specimen of a guest that has graciously arrived on set. You may have heard of him in the news, on TV, or in the papers. He has recently partnered up with one of, if not the most famous Taimanin to ever live, the living legend herself, Asagi Igawa, the Almighty Taimanin. Let's give a big hand for Naruto Uzumaki." "Come on down," the host exclaimed with an exaggerated gesture as the blonde boy stepped onto the stage, waving nervously at the audience. The studio was filled with thunderous applause, whistles, and catcalls from the crowd as the young Uzumaki walked on stage and made his way over to his seat and sat down, trying not to let his anxiety get the best of him. The host marched up to him and gave him a set of 3 E's, one on each cheek, then a quick peck on his lips. It seemed like that was her preferred method of greeting people, definitely friendly. She then gave him a wink and sat down in the seat across from him in a smooth and elegant motion. "Naruto Uzumaki, welcome to my show, Intel. So lovely to have you here tonight," she greeted as she leaned forward slightly, making sure her S were on full display. He blushed and chuckled nervously. Thank you, ma'am. And, thanks for inviting me to be on your show. It's nice to meet you." He stammered a bit, but his nervousness began to fade somewhat as the dark-skinned woman gave him a warm and comforting smile, making it difficult for him to take his eyes off of her. "You're quite welcome. I'm happy to have you here. First, feel free to call me AI-chan. Second, I have so many questions for you. Let's start with an obvious one. How did it feel when Asagi made the oath of marriage to you?" she asked with a little twinkle in her eye. He laughed softly and replied while scratching his cheek. "At first, I kept asking myself if it was all some kind of a dream. I never would have imagined in a million years getting picked as someone as famous as Asagi, who is beautiful on the inside as she is on the out. She immediately welcomed me into her home, cooked dinner for me, cuddled with me, sang a song for me, bought me all the gear and equipment I wanted and needed, and earlier today we began our training together. Her teaching was easy to understand and follow as she trained me. Overall, she is a truly amazing person and I have never been happier. I am both glad and honored beyond words that she chose me." "Oh, I guess I rambled on a bit there." He spoke a little nervously at the end, realizing he had been jabbering a bit. His words earned a mix of laughter and oohs and ahs from the audience. A camera then panned over towards Asagi herself, who was using both hands to hide the blush on her cheeks, a tender smile on her face because of his heartfelt words. Wow, an unexpected and romantic love mixed with some rags to riches. Sounds like the makings of a good story. I am very happy for you both. Now, Naruto-kun, I want to ask you, you were something of a troublemaker back at the academy. Yes, your pranks were quite infamous. What motivated you to perform these pranks? The host questioned him, leaning forward with an eager grin on her face. Naruto paused briefly and rubbed the back of his head. He should have figured a question like that would crop up. He then took a deep breath before he answered, growing up, I was pretty lonely. A lot of people opted to ignore my presence and act as if I didn't exist, like I was some kind of ghost. So, I started performing pranks. The bigger and more insane, the more attention I got. I guess I kind of fed on the attention, even if I got in trouble for it. I guess, in my mind, it was better for people to scold me for my mischief than be ignored entirely. Aishwarya slowly nodded her head and spoke. From the sounds of it, your pranks weren't just a cry for attention, they were practically a cry for help. You were trying to reach out in the only way you knew how. I don't think you're a bad kid, you're just misunderstood. I think people will have a lot more sympathy for you once word of this gets out. At the last part, she pointed towards the cameras for emphasis with a little smile and a wink. Next, I want to invite a guest here to share a few words and her own experiences with you. The dark-skinned woman stated and then clapped her hands twice before announcing, here comes our next guest, Ino Yamanaka, the fabulous heiress to the Yamanaka clan. A series of applause broke out as Naruto stared wide-eyed when his classmate Ino appeared on stage, dressed to the nines like some sort of beauty queen while waving towards the crowd and cameras. He chuckled as he got up from his seat and warmly greeted his fellow blonde, but much to his surprise, Ino wrapped him in a hug which he returned, and then the two sat down together on the same couch. Welcome to my show, Inachin. Aishwarya spoke and was met with a polite nod. Thank you, Aishwarya. It's a pleasure to be here. The blue-eyed girl spoke and then turned to look at Naruto, a smile on her face. The young heiress then giggled and added, I cannot believe that I'm on TV. Hey Haruno, try and top this, she called out with a playful smirk, causing a few people to chuckle. Meanwhile, a certain pink-haired fangirl was stewing jealously in her bedroom upon hearing this. So Ino, tell us about your time with Naruto. What do you think of him? Aishwarya requested with a serene smile as she lazily twirled a lock of her hair. Naruto is quite a character, but he's ultimately a good person. One thing that I always liked about him is that he treats everyone equally. Doesn't matter if you're a clan heir or not. To him, people are just people. As an heiress, it can sometimes be hard to make friends since they may only want to befriend me because of my status. Not Naruto. Since he left my class, things have gotten almost unbearably quiet. One could always count on him to liven things up. More importantly though, after hearing what he said just now about being alone, it makes me realize that I could have been a better friend. I was so focused on trying to impress Sasuke that I ended up neglecting a friend. How stupid is that, pursuing a boy that couldn't care less about me or my existence while ignoring a true and loyal friend who was practically screaming for help. The signs and red flags were all there, but me and everyone else just ignored it. I guess what I really want to say is that I'm sorry, Naruto, for everything. No one deserves to be treated like that. Ino spoke, finally finishing her spiel. The audience was silent and a few members of the audience looked at one another before looking back at the screen with sympathy in their eyes. It was clear that her words had a profound impact on them. After a few seconds, one person started clapping, then another, and another, until the whole room was clapping and giving a standing ovation. Ino blinked, looking a bit taken aback, but smiled and waved her hand and then hugged Naruto once again as he spoke to her. Thank you, Ino. It means a lot to hear you say that. Maybe we could hang out sometime. At his question, she smiled even wider and nodded in agreement. Aishwarya had her hand covering her mouth, her eyes shimmering and even some tears forming, touched by the display. She wiped her tears away with a lone finger and said, I'm afraid that is all the time we have for you, Inasan. Thank you for being here and joining us tonight. The Yamanaka heiress nodded and then stood up and headed backstage, waving at the audience once again and waved goodbye to her former classmate before departing. Aishwarya then cleared her throat and addressed the audience. That was a wonderful moment. Touching, truly touching. The lights overhead suddenly turned crimson in color while the theme music of a certain famous killer shark began playing as Aishwarya covered her mouth in mock horror. Oh dear. It seems our next guest has arrived. He needs no introduction. He has been featured on the news every night since he snapped on a live broadcast. He is currently under heavy investigation by the Hokage himself. Additionally, in a recent poll he has been voted as most despicable person in Konoha. For those of you who don't know who this is, it is Naruto's former school teacher, Iruka Yamino. Upon her announcement, a series of boos and jeers echoed as the scarred Chunin himself appeared on stage, wearing his usual outfit minus the flak jacket and headband. There were signs of stubble on his face and it seemed he had been neglecting his personal hygiene of late. The disgraced teacher put on a fake smile as he waved at the audience, trying to put on a friendly and brotherly type of demeanor which nobody seemed to be buying. I didn't know there was a poll for that, the whiskered teen thought as he glowered at his former teacher. He definitely wasn't happy about seeing the man again, but if he kept his cool it would certainly be possible to humiliate the man on live television. Thank you, Iruka said in a tone of voice that sounded like he was talking to children instead of adults. He then sat down and then addressed the young Uzumaki. "How are you doing, Naruto?" "A lot better since leaving your class," the whiskered teen answered bluntly, desperately wishing he could punch that stupid grin into the back of Haruka's throat and make him choke on it. Kami, he hated that fake smile. "Let me see if I understand this correctly." Aishwarya spoke and then paused as she held up some cards which likely had some notes or talking points for her to use as she continued. Naruto Uzumaki was in Haruka's class for nearly 3 years. On 2 occasions, Naruto failed the graduation exam due to him being unable to perform the basic clone jutsu. Naruto claims that it is because Haruka was a bad teacher, though the teacher himself claims otherwise. Does it about sum it up? Haruka was quick to reply, still trying to maintain that facade of his. "Yes, and I still stand by the claim that I am an excellent teacher. I have been a long-time teacher at the academy. My track record speaks for itself. Naruto's grades will certainly speak for him as well, I'm afraid." Naruto narrowed his eyes, his lips forming into a thin line as his former teacher insulted him. "That's where you're wrong. My grades speak nothing about my actual abilities. All that tells us is that I'm an academic failure. I'll admit that I'm not much good at stuff like math and the like, but last I checked, stuff like that won't do much good in a life or death fight. Now then, I think it's time I called you out on your bullshit, Haruka. How about you help me demonstrate the so-called taijutsu stance you taught me during my tenure at the academy?" The Chunin scoffed, crossing his arms, his tone exasperated as he spoke. "And what would the point of that be, and what will this prove exactly? That I'm a bad teacher or a liar?" "Both. Now quit stalling. Come on, show everyone what you taught me, or you can go ahead and admit what you really are by refusing," the whiskered teen challenged with a wide grin. Aishwarya watched with interest, curious to see how things would play out. Haruka sneered and rolled his eyes as he muttered, "Fine, have it your way," as he assisted the blonde into a rather awkward stance. Naruto had his fists raised and his feet were spread apart, but it was clearly not a very good stance, but a rather amateurish one. The Chunin then turned his head to look at the camera. "See, he's clearly got no clue how to use this stance," he spoke arrogantly as he patted the blonde on the shoulder and stood aside. Many members of the audience were staring at the Chunin with a judging look. Most of them weren't trained in combat, but even they could see that stance was no good. "Here is the stance Asagi taught me," Naruto stated as he demonstrated the stance that his partner showed him mere hours ago. He had one foot in front of the other and was crouching low, his fists raised and ready. It was clear that this was a much more effective and proper stance. Aishwarya and the rest of the studio audience gave a new sound as the host spoke. "My, what a difference, almost like night and day at that." The whiskered teen nodded and then began his next demonstration. "This is the basic academy clone jutsu." The Jinchuriki spoke and then cast the technique, creating a sickly and pathetic-looking replica of himself, and then he continued. "Next is the shadow clone jutsu." Upon stating this, he cast the second technique and easily created a dozen perfect duplicates of himself. Haruka sputtered for a second, looking nervously towards the audience in the form of Asagi, who was offstage, before sputtering, "What does that prove? You honestly expect an academy teacher to have access to a forbidden technique like that?" At the disgraced teacher's question, the blonde shook his head as he replied, "Of course not, but that isn't the point I'm trying to make. The point is that I spent almost 3 years trapped in your class and learned nothing. Whereas I trained with Asagi just a few hours today and already made a lot of progress. Sometimes there are bad students and there are bad teachers. You, Haruka, are the worst teacher. I want to know why. What did I ever do to you personally that was so awful and so horrible that you would go out of your way to sabotage my education, to brand me as the deadless, to constantly pair me up against Sasuke every single day? Oh, what do you have to say for yourself?" Naruto yelled angrily as his clones dispersed. Haruka looked around him, his eyes wide in fear as he realized he had been backed into a corner, unable to answer his former students' questions. The scarred Chunin then stood up and shouted, "This is all a bunch of lies and slander. None of this is true, and I will not stand here and take these kinds of accusations." "So, you're just going to walk away from this without offering a single word in your defense, and that's rather cowardly, wouldn't you agree?" the host questioned, her eyes narrowing dangerously. It seemed that whenever he was challenged or backed into a corner, he would lash out like a wild animal and attack anyone and anything around him. Pathetic, to say the least. "I did not come here to defend myself. I came here to tell my side of the story, and it is a truthful story," the scarred Chunin argued, his voice rising in anger. "Truthfully, then explain why you went so far out of your way to try and keep me away from Naruto and discourage me from partnering with him," Asagi asked as she marched out on the stage, her hand upon her blade and a scowl on her face, ready to leap to the Uzumaki's defense in case Haruka got any ideas. "Because the boy is a walking disaster waiting to happen. He will only serve to drag you down and cause nothing but trouble. Trust me, the boy is a lost cause, and the sooner you abandon him, the better." Haruka snarled out as the audience began booing at him. "Seriously, what the hell is your problem? What did I ever do to you to make you hate me so much? What did I do that would make you want to sabotage my education?" the whiskered teen demanded as he rose from his seat. "I will not say," the Chunin hissed out, desperately wanting to say why he hated the whiskered teen, but unfortunately for him, any mentioning of the Kyuubi was expressly forbidden. "I'm afraid this is all the time we have for you, Haruka-san. You have been a real delight, truly a breath of fresh air. Goodbye, Aishwarya declared sarcastically with a sweet yet poisonous smile on her face. The scarred teacher looked like he wanted to protest but was forced to leave the stage due to being escorted out by a pair of security guards. Thank Kami, that's over. What a bastard. Asagi groaned as she and Naruto sat back down on the couch together, both of them glad that the scarred man was gone now. Hopefully this broadcast would further expose him for what he truly was to everyone that was watching. Agreed. He was the worst teacher ever, Naruto muttered, still a bit steamed over the encounter. Aishwarya chuckled as she reclined back in her seat and spoke. Now then, we have just enough time for one more guess. So let's welcome the dark-skinned woman was cut off by the sounds of a gunshot and the sounds of screaming as Iruka stumbled back on stage, clutching at a wound on his stomach as he fell forward. A woman then appeared on stage. It was a woman with purple hair, wearing a black tank top that leaves her stomach exposed, very short cut-off jeans that were left unbuttoned that were only held up by a military webbing belt, a pair of military jungle boots without socks, and a pair of black fingerless gloves and a cross-draw holster. She also had some sort of tribal tattoo on her shoulder. She was holding a Beretta pistol in one hand and a bottle of some sort of alcoholic beverage in the other, and she looked royally ticked off. It was that she looks very, very angry and most definitely drunk. Not a good combination, Naruto asked while the Almighty Taimanin stepped between him and the newcomer, ready to protect him and everyone else in case the new woman became a threat. The duo then took notice that the new woman was almost laser-focused on the dark-skinned host who was holding up her hands in surrender, though strangely, she didn't seem at all threatened as she had a calming smile on her face. You ain't cancelled on me. You know what a pain in the ass this is. I'm not some animal you can yank around at a dog and pony shit show. The angry woman snarled while pressing the barrel of her weapon directly against Aishwarya's temple. Cancel? Nothing was cancelled. Your appearance was rescheduled. Big difference, my dear. The purple-haired host spoke soothingly, still maintaining a calm appearance and making a gesture that seemed to translate as keep rolling to the cameras. Rivai, stand down. You were given a second chance, don't throw it away. I'll overlook you shooting Iruka, but if you cause further harm I'll be forced to intervene. Asagi spoke in a warning tone while the now-named Rivai took a swig of booze and glared at the Almighty Taimanin and spit back defiantly back off Queen Bee. And what the is an Iruka? I only shot some whiny-ass little. Both Naruto and Asagi glanced behind her, taking note that the aforementioned Iruka was currently bleeding all over the stage while twitching. Ignoring him, the blonde asked, can someone please tell me what's going on? What's this Rivai woman's problem? Who is she anyway? The one to answer his questions was the gunslinger herself, who replied, the name's Rivai, you little shit. I was a smuggler not so long ago, got pinched and put in the clink for shooting some people after a job went horribly wrong. After a while, some big shots started rounding up inmates with combat capabilities and experience, myself included. We were given the choice of signing up with this Taimanin shit and earning a get-out-of-jail card along with some other swanky bonuses. I wasn't about to rot in a cell, so I jumped aboard. What they didn't tell me was that I was gonna be strut around like some pantsy-ass poodle. I only agreed to this shit to get those assholes off my back. And what does this little princess doing? Cancels on me. Rescheduled. Aishwarya corrected and Rivai growled in response, shut the up. If you'll let me explain, you'll find out that this whole misunderstanding was caused by a miscommunication. The host explained calmly. Meanwhile, in the background, the audience members seemed rooted in their seats, unable to decide whether to bolt out the doors or watch and see how this situation plays out. Not another word, Rivai muttered bitterly. Off to the side, Naruto was pursing his lips as the situation only intensified, knowing that it was only a matter of time before everything spiraled out of control. He then stepped forward and stated the first thing that came to mind. You're not really angry at Aishwarya, are you? At his words, the gunslinger rounded on him and growled, what was that shit stain? She pointed her weapon at him, which caused Asagi to tense up, almost ready to pounce upon the tattooed woman, but was stopped when the blonde put a hand on his partner's shoulder to stop her. You're angry because you feel like you've been lied to, like you've been tricked. Right, he guessed, and when he saw the way Rivai's eyes narrowed and her teeth grit, he knew he was right. How would you know? She questioned, not bothering to deny his claims. Easy, been lied to a lot by people over the years. Though for you, I think it's more than that. Isn't it? I think the real reason you're so angry is because that you're lonely. The whiskered teen spoke, and this time his words struck a chord. Shut the up, who are you to talk? How don't you daring tell me how I feel, asshole, Rivai roared and fired her weapon, the bullet striking the floor next to his feet and making him flinch, though not out of fear but instead, annoyance. You get angry when people try to empathize with you as well or try to connect with you, like you're afraid of letting people in. Is that because you're afraid of being betrayed, being hurt? Did someone betray or hurt you in the past? Naruto continued on, his voice becoming more stern as he took a step towards Rivai. Shut up, don't talk like you ain't know me, you don't know shit, brat, Rivai shouted and fired 2 more shots. Both rounds were fired into the ground. I know how it feels to be alone. I almost reached a point that I was ready and willing to accept anyone that gave me even so much as the slightest bit of attention. You push people away because you're scared of getting hurt or betrayed. When people try to befriend or care for you, you end up hurting them, and that just makes you angrier. More specifically, you get angrier at yourself. Is that right? Tell me, why are you so angry? He questioned, and the gunwoman responded with a loud scream of anger and fury. Shut up, you want to know why I'm so angry? I'm angry because I feel empty inside. I feel empty inside because I'm angry. I'm angry because I can't understand what I'm feeling. Because I'm angry at everything around me, because I don't know who or what to direct it at. I already killed my asshole of a father, and the wit cop that me. I have nothing. Revi spoke the last part almost brokenly as she lowered her pistol. Perhaps it was the booze, maybe it was the Jinchuriki's words, maybe it was the raging storm of her own emotions, or a mix of these things. Regardless, something in her cracked. Naruto nodded solemnly, understanding her pain and anger. In his head, he knew she was dangerous, but also understood that she needed help. She was suffering and hurting inside. He then stepped forward and gently removed the weapon from her hand and placed it on a nearby table. He then pulled her into an embrace. I kinda know how you feel in some ways, maybe not in the exact same way, but still probably better than most people. Revi's eyes widened for a brief moment before she allowed herself to awkwardly return the embrace, allowing the whiskered teen to hold her, not remembering the last time someone had gotten this close to her. She was about to break the hug when he spoke again. It's okay, you can cry if you need to. She then froze, looking him in the eye. His eyes were blue, kind, and filled with an understanding and warmth that no one had ever shown her. No pity, no scorn, no contempt. Just compassion and a desire to help her. She sniffled a bit and held back her tears and slowly sank to the floor, leaning her head on the whiskered blondes and allowing him to wrap his arms around her. Asagi had remained silent throughout the whole ordeal. She honestly had no idea what to make of the scene. She could have easily taken the woman down but decided against it and remained quiet. Instead, she chose to watch. Something told her that this was not a situation where her blades were required. This was a matter that should be handled gently, and Naruto had everything under control. The rest of the audience stared on in shock and surprise at the scene unfolding before them. No one, not a single soul, had expected something like this to happen. Most were speechless. Some people in the crowd had tears in their eyes. Revi sniffled a bit and broke the hug before looking Naruto in the eyes once more and stating matter-of-factly, "You're a real piece of work. Don't think I got your name. My name's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki." The whiskered blonde replied, earning a small smirk from the purply-haired gunslinger. "Well, thanks Naruto. You got S. Back home, people usually kept their distance from me, especially when I had a gun in my hand. You didn't so much as flinch. Hell, you were willing to get up in my grill. I'll give you points for that." Revi spoke and gave the teen a genuine smile before her attention was turned towards the dark-skinned host. "What the hell are you looking at?" she questioned, causing the host to shrug and reply, "Nothing, you're just quite a beautiful young woman. A very lovely lady." The tattooed gunslinger stared at the woman with a look of skepticism and then flipped off the dark-skinned woman while muttering, "Screw you, I'm going home. Need to think about some shit. Yo, Naruto, I'll be seeing you around K." Naruto smiled and nodded his head as the purple-haired woman exited the studio, and once she was gone, the Jinchuriki turned his attention towards the host, who was smiling brightly at him. Now that was quite an unexpected development, wouldn't you agree, ladies and gentlemen? The host questioned, getting nods from the audience. "Help, still bleeding here," Uruka weakly called out as he tried to get someone's attention. "Oh right, I forgot about you," Aishwarya said dismissively before she snapped her fingers, causing some paramedics to appear from offstage and commanded, "Would someone get him to a hospital and have him taken care of? He's bleeding all over my stage." The paramedics did as instructed and removed the injured Chunin from the studio while the host turned her attention towards Naruto and stated, that was quite an unexpected development. Despite what transpired, you bravely stepped forward and were able to defuse a very tense situation." My hero, the dark-skinned woman, then leaned forward and had the blonde on the cheek, which made him blush profusely. "Unfortunately, due to that unexpected interruption, our final guest appearance will have to be cancelled. Apologies for the inconvenience. However, we will have a new special tomorrow evening and will be featuring a new special guest," the host announced, and the audience cheered in agreement, all of them wanting to get home after that unexpected turn of events. She was about to close the show when suddenly a familiar figure rushed onto the stage. "What do you mean my appearance is cancelled?" a male voice yelled out. The owner being none other than Sasuke Uchiha, who had a bandage across his nose after his last encounter with the Uzumaki. "Kami, not this guy again," Naruto muttered as he facepalmed, wondering why in Kami's name that Sasuke of all people had to be invited here. "Harem, who is this angry child and why is he on my stage? I certainly didn't approve of this," Aishwarya stated as she scowled a bit and began rifling through her notes and cards. A stagehand then rushed next to her and whispered something in her ear, prompting the host to speak out. "That Sasuke Uchiha, from the way people talked about him, I was expecting some sort of godly adness, not some little emo boy. Boring. Get this unimportant side character off my stage." "Unimportant? Do you have any idea who I am?" the Uchiha shouted angrily at being so readily dismissed. "I haven't the slightest idea, Bubuke Gazpacho," she replied, while in the background both Naruto and Asagi were barely holding in their laughter, since not only had the show host immediately disregarded the Uchiha, but also got his name wrong after already hearing it. "Who are you talking about? That's not my name. It's Sasuke Sasukeuchiha," Sasuke shouted angrily while Asagi and Naruto were doing their best to keep a straight face, though Asagi was starting to have trouble holding it together and was trying not to laugh, which was something she'd never thought she'd be doing. Is it supposed to mean something to me? Karu Kachika, the purple-haired host, asked with a blank face. You're doing that on purpose, aren't you? Are you messing with me? The raven-haired teen growled out, feeling greatly insulted by her antics and attitude. Why would I do that? I literally have no idea who you are. The dark-skinned woman spoke with a shrug. This can't be happening. How does this not ring a bell? You know what? I'm tired of playing this game. I'm Sasuke Uchiha, heir of the Uchiha clan, he shouted, and everyone went silent. Nope, doesn't ring a bell. I guess your clan isn't all that important. Sorry, Mamajukikia. Aishwarya spoke and then snapped her fingers, which prompted security to begin dragging the Uchiha off the stage, much to both Naruto and Asaga's amusement. Wow, I don't think I've ever seen anyone screw with Sasuke like that. Really irked him that you pretended to not know his name. The Jinchuriki noted with a chuckle, his words earning a raised eyebrow from the dark-skinned host. Pretended, my dear, I honestly don't know his name. The woman clarified, and Naruto's jaw dropped and exclaimed, but then why did you keep making up names? The purple-haired beauty finished the blonde sentence before answering his question. No particular reason at all. Just found it funny. At that, the Uzumaki face vaulted. Once he got up from the floor, he couldn't help but laugh a bit. With that said and done and his time on the show finished, he and Asagi decided to head home for the evening. Meanwhile, Hokage office. Stupid Iruka. Couldn't keep your damn mouth shut, could you? A certain silver-haired Chunin muttered as he turned the dial on the safe, trying to get it open so that he may steal the forbidden scroll. He had originally intended to use a certain brat as a scapegoat for the theft, but not only had he been taken by that damn Taimanin, but Iruka's idiotic antics had also landed him in hot water as well. Both of these factors had forced him to accelerate his plans before it was too late. If his connection to Orochimaru was discovered, he'd be trialed, court-martialed, and executed. After a few more moments, he managed to get the safe open and reach inside, procuring his prize. He then heard a giggling noise behind him, prompting him to slowly turn around, his hand reaching towards the giant shuriken strapped to his back as he saw a girl with pink hair casually sitting on the desk. Ooh, what you got there? That's something nice, the girl asked with a gleeful smile. Mizuki couldn't allow for any witnesses to identify him and lunged towards the girl, her eyes now glowing a deep crimson color as she spoke. Oh, you want to play with Feli then? In a flash, the sounds of flesh tearing and splattering was heard as his head was sliced clean off his body and rolled to the floor while the girl giggled manically as the body fell. Oops, I broke it already. Too weak, the girl muttered with a whimsical sigh as she began poking around in the open safe, ignoring the forbidden scroll. Trash, 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 smutty trash, more trash. Ooh, what's this? She asked herself as she pulled out a folder that was marked Uzumaki, Namikaze. She flipped it open and began reading the contents. As she skimmed over the words, she smiled all the brighter and spoke to herself, interesting. Some pretty interesting stuff in here. Might be useful later. She then looked towards the last part of the folder, which had the picture of a certain whiskered teen. He's cute. I wonder if he might want to play with Feli. Feli has been so bored lately. She giggled to herself again and then peered once more into the safe until she found what she was looking for, a file titled Edwin Black. Just what she needed. She grinned almost maniacally to herself as she struck a match and dropped it on a stack of papers that were conveniently sitting on the desk. Whoopsies, accidentally burned all the boring paperwork. What a shame, she muttered with a giggle, not even caring that the fire would spread to the rest of the room, nor that the body of the head and body of the silver-haired Chunin would be incinerated along with the office. She then quickly fled from the room, not wanting to get caught by the guards or any patrolling jonin. Ah, now then, where were we? The pink-haired girl asked herself as she skipped away merrily while humming a tune to herself, the folder and file under her arm, completely ignoring the growing sound of flames and alarms in the distance. Things are gonna get really interesting soon. Feli is looking forward to playing lots, she sang to herself as she disappeared into the darkness of the night, leaving no trace of her existence. A sinister giggling filling the air as the Hokage office was rapidly consumed in the growing flames. Are all talk shows as chaotic as that? Naruto asked as he and Asagi walked home. He had to admit, it was definitely strange to have appeared on TV like that, but it also felt pretty good to let out his emotions like that too and perhaps get a little closure. Definitely felt nice to put Iruka in his place. Depends. Some can be more messy than others. The Almighty Taimanin replied with a small giggle, with the Uzumaki joining in her almost infectious laughter. They paused as they saw a light in the distance, shining like a beacon as smoke rose up into the sky. Wait a second, is the Hokage tower on fire? The whiskered teen asked as he squinted his eyes slightly. Asagi blinked, her smile disappearing as she looked towards the orange glow of the building. I think you're right, she muttered before drawing her katana and then spoke to her partner Naruto. Run straight home. Don't stop for anything. I'm going to check out the situation. She turned away from him before he could reply, rushing off towards the burning building. Initially he wanted to protest, but ultimately decided to obey her instructions and began making his way home to the Igawa residence. Asagi hurried on and within moments she arrived at her destination. She saw teams of Chunin were already surrounding the inferno and began casting water jutsu to snuff out the flames. She saw the Hokage also lending his assistance as he was casting his own jutsu, and within moments the flames died down beneath the torrent of water. As the fire died down and the smoke cleared, the Almighty Taimanin saw that the tower had taken a lot of damage, but it wasn't beyond repair. She looked around, seeing the Hokage talking with the various teams of Chunin, no doubt ordering them about to assess the damage, determine the point of origin if possible, and so on. She approached the Sandaime to ask him what had happened, but when he turned to her, there was anger in his eyes as he pointed an accusatory finger at her Asagi. How convenient that a fire starts at the Hokage Tower after confronting me not so long ago. He spoke with a sneer. I assure you, it is only a coincidence. Up until a few minutes ago, I was in attendance with Naruto at the talk show and tell. Plenty of witnesses to prove it, both in the live audience and abroad. Asagi replied with a small frown, not liking how the Sandaime had accused her so readily. Even if that is true, perhaps you ordered one of your fellow Taimanin to do the deed. The Hokage theorized, earning a roll of the eyes from the Almighty Taimanin. I did no such thing. Have a Yamanaka scan my memories if you don't believe me, but it'll be a waste of time. Even if I were guilty, and this is not an admission, you had better have proper evidence to back it up. She spoke with hostility as she and Hiruzen glared at one another. Before they could continue their conversation, a certain cat-masked Anbu appeared and spoke. Hokage-sama, we have conducted a brief investigation and discovered the burnt remains of a body within what was left of your office. The body had been beheaded. It seems that your safe had been opened prior to the fire and the contents have either been stolen or destroyed. Most unfortunately, it would seem that the forbidden scroll was left behind to burn in the blaze. From the sounds of it, a robbery had definitely taken place there and someone had been murdered. A betrayed accomplice, a silenced witness. What was the intent of this event? Sabotage, robbery. Both. The forbidden scroll was a virtually priceless and irreplaceable artifact of Konoha that contained numerous jutsu created and recorded by all of the Hokages. It seemed strange for the arsonist to leave such a thing behind to be burned. There were more than a few ninja out there in the world that would happily pay a king's ransom for such a thing. Thank you for the report. Tell no one about this. You may go. Hiruzen dismissed the cat-masked Anbu, who disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Asagi adopted a thinking pose and then spoke up in a more professional tone. This could be a threat to the village. Perhaps I should. She was then cut off by the Sandaime, who raised his hand with a deep frown on his face. I think you have already done enough. I shall handle this investigation personally. He spoke with an edge to his voice. He was effectively shutting her out of the investigation. Did he still seriously think she was somehow involved in this, or was he just being obstinate because of their previous conversation? If that is what you wish. The Almighty Taimanin spoke coolly and curtly before turning away and walking off, deciding not to give the Sandaime the satisfaction of a reaction, but she wasn't about to leave without giving a final word. Be very careful of how you treat your allies, Hiruzen Sarutobi. They may not be so friendly to you or accommodating if you treat them poorly. Hiruzen said nothing, but his frown did grow a little deeper, a little more troubled as the brunette departed. She had given him fair warning once before about keeping control of his people. This time he had ostracized her, undoubtedly out of anger for both the fire and their prior meeting. He had best be careful. Even Asaga's patience had limitations. With Naruto, the Uzumaki sighed to himself as he made his way towards the Taimanin district, occasionally casting glances towards the burnt Hokage Tower. He couldn't help but wonder what had started the fire, but he was certain that Asagi would fill him in on all of the important details. As he walked through the empty streets, he felt a presence. He wasn't sure about the point of origin, but someone was definitely watching him as he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He then heard a creepy giggle behind him. He spun around, ready to fight whoever had snuck up on him, but saw nothing. Hello, is anyone there? He called out, feeling more than a little nervous. His response came in the form of yet another giggle. Over here, the voice taunted him. It sounded young and high-pitched, feminine even. He slowly turned around and came face to face with a pair of red eyes that seemed to stare straight through him, the pupils a thin slit like a cat. He found himself staring at a girl with long pink hair, her eyes boring into his. She wore a white dress with cuffs attached to her wrists and ankles. She also had pointed ears as well. Here's Felicia, she greeted and gave him a wink as she playfully seemed to glide around him. Felicia, he parroted, not recognizing the girl at all. There was something definitely off about her. Beneath that childish persona and energy she was giving off, he felt a deep, yes, that is me, Feli. Do you want to play with me? She asked with a grin. The air suddenly became colder and more oppressive as the atmosphere grew thicker with. Her expression grew darker and more intense as her eyes focused on the blonde, a hungry look on her face. Naruto took a step back and then another. His instincts were telling him to run. Felicia took a step forward, her gaze never wavering from him as she advanced. Naruto took another step back as he replied, sorry, but I need to be heading home. He spoke as he carefully tried to step around her, only for her to block his path. Wah, that's no fun. Feli wants to play. I want to play with you, Naruto. Uzumaki. The girl pouted and gave him a hurt look, before her eyes became dark and her lips curled into a sadistic smirk. How do you know my name? He asked, wondering if perhaps she saw him in the papers or most recently during his appearance on Aishwarya's show or perhaps in the news. She puffed out her cheeks and began to shed crocodile tears while whining, wah. Naruto doesn't want to play with Feli. What is Feli doing wrong, she asked herself, ignoring his question. Her demeanor suddenly shifting once again to a more playful one as she continued to spoke. Oh, idea. Feli had a good idea. Feli knows how to make friends with Naruto. Presents, yes, presents. Feli is so smart. Now what can Feli give to Naruto? Can she ask herself as she surreptitiously held a certain file marked Uzumaki Namikaze behind her back, which went unnoticed by the Jinchuriki. She thought to herself for a few moments before letting out a sly grin and then spoke gleefully. Feli knows Feli will offer Naruto the gift of death. At this, the blonde immediately took a defensive posture, ready to defend himself by whatever means necessary until he saw the Pinkette raise 3 fingers as she continued speaking. Naruto must give Feli 3 names. Then Feli will unalive whomever that Naruto has named. Naruto was stunned for a few moments as his brain struggled to comprehend the situation and the terms the strange girl had laid down. 3 names, he parroted, a look of disbelief on his face, and then asked, wait, unalive, you mean killed? He had a bad feeling about this, especially as he felt the air grow heavy with the girl's killing intent. That is what Feli said, she confirmed cheerily with a nod, a look of childish innocence plastered across her features as she added, offer Feli 3 names, and Feli will end them for Naruto-kun. No matter the time, place, or person. I can name someone, anyone, and you'd kill them even if I were to name a cage-level person, he asked in a skeptical tone, thinking that the Pinkette would have some limits. After all, this was a bit too good to be true. Felicia nodded her head eagerly as she grinned and answered, of course. Anyone. What if I don't have anyone to name, he asked, since there were mainly a few annoyances in his life, but he couldn't think of anyone that truly represented a threat to him. Not with Asagi's protection and influence. She scoffed slightly, a sadistic grin on her face as she replied, nonsense, sooner or later, you'll have the name of someone you want dead. So long as there are people in the world, someone is gonna want someone dead. She giggled darkly as she continued, so just say the name, and Feli will end them. You won't even have to get your hands dirty. And why would you offer me this gift, he asked with a raised eyebrow, wondering just who this girl was. He wanted to ask her, but he doubted that she would answer him. Feli hates being bored. That crusty old man keeps giving Feli boring jobs. Maybe you'll be more fun, she spoke while licking her lips in a sensual manner. She leaned forward, her expression turning into one of hunger as she asked, so, Naruto-kun, are you going to give Feli 3 names, yes or no? Who's this old man you're working for? The Sandame. Someone else, he asked her, his question making the Pinkette frown slightly and then lightly bop herself on the side of the head while sticking her tongue out. Whoopsies, Feli said too much. Stupid Feli ma. If you don't have names to give, then Feli has no more business here. Goodbye, Naruto-kun. Feli thinks that the next time we meet, you'll have at least 1 name to offer. Bye-bye, she spoke in a sing-song voice as she vanished in a puff of smoke. Hey, wait a minute, don't just disappear on me like that, the blonde called out, looking around to see if the mysterious girl was hiding. He felt a shiver run down his spine and felt like something was wrong, as though he was being watched again. He turned around and came face to face with a grinning Felicia who was now right behind him, their noses nearly touching. Boo, she said with a grin, and then suddenly winked out of existence before he could even fully register what had happened. He stared at the space she had been a moment ago and then began muttering to himself, okay, that was weird. He glanced around but felt no signs of her presence. It seemed that she was gone now. He shuddered a bit and continued on home at a much more rapid pace. All the while he found himself repeatedly glancing over his shoulder. With Felicia, the Pinkette appeared in a darkened alleyway, giggling to herself as she merrily skipped along while humming a tune to herself. You're late. A gruff voice cut through the darkness as the form of Danzo stepped out of the shadows. His lone eye narrowed in visible annoyance as he then added, was burning the Hokage tower truly necessary? You are attracting too much unwanted attention. The crimson-eyed girl rocked back and forth on her heels a few times, a mirthful smirk on her face as she replied, sorry. Feli had to cover her tracks. Someone else was there poking around through the safe. Some silver-haired guy with an oversized shuriken was trying to steal the giant scroll. The aged Warhawk recognized the description belonging to the academy teacher Mizuki. This definitely complicated things, but so long nothing could be traced back to him, then everything was fine. Wait, a giant scroll that could only be the forbidden scroll. It was lost in the blaze. Damn, a powerful and priceless artifact now gone. He sighed deeply in aggravation and held out his hand expectantly, prompting the girl to slap a file in his hand that was marked Edwin Black. Finally, he muttered as he opened it and began skimming through the contents, a deep frown on his face as he spoke quietly to himself. Next to nothing on Edwin Black. No birth record, no friends, no family. Well now, I didn't expect this person to be affiliated with Black. The information Aburo gave me was limited but useful. Perhaps this fellow can shed a bit more light on Black. The elder muttered as he tucked the file within his robes. I hope this is worth my time, he told the girl with a frown. He wasn't exactly pleased to have had the forbidden scroll burned when he could have used it to his advantage and his own ends. Still, at least nobody else could gain access to the secrets and techniques within and use them against him. Feli is bored. How about a more entertaining assignment? She asked while clapping her hands together, her words earning a frown from the elder. Felicia was a useful tool for him. While she may be erratic, she was an extremely deadly assassin. Far too free-spirited for his liking, but still useful all the same. He ignored her, walked off with the Pinkette frowning behind him as he disappeared into the shadows. Once she was certain he was out of earshot, Felicia stamped her foot and puffed out her cheeks as she crossed her arms and spoke to herself. Phooey. Stupid old man. Felly needs entertainment stimulation, ma, no matter. Ganzabaka gonna die someday soon anyway, especially if he keeps digging his nose where it doesn't belong. Tuhi. She vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving a pair of crimson eyes floating in the shadows, her childish giggling echoing into the night. With Naruto, about time, the Jinchuriki muttered as he made it to the front door of the Igawa household and quickly entered inside, feeling much safer now that he was home. That Felicia girl was definitely a strange one, and from what he could tell, not the sort of person one would want to be stuck in a dark alley with. He shut the door behind him and locked it, and was about to remove his shoes when Sakura appeared with a small smile. Welcome home, I saw you on TV, you looked really cool on the show. Say, where's Asagi? There's something I need to talk to you both about. Last I saw of her, she went to check out the Hokage tower. Yes, you didn't see it, but the damn place was on fire. So what's up? What do you need to talk to me about? He asked, since it sounded like something important. The tomboy Taimanin pressed her fingers together and looked down with a look of hesitation. Well, you see, she fidgeted a little before speaking. She was having trouble finding the right words to speak, especially since she didn't know how the blonde would take the news, much less her sister. It'd be better if Asagi were present too, since it involves both of you. Naruto frowned a little, his brow furrowed, and he asked, is it something serious? You can tell me now and I'll let Asagi know later. Well, she started, but before she could continue, a certain brunette appeared and burst through the door, a clearly frustrated look on her face as she quickly locked the door back and sighed deeply as she tiredly ran her hand across her face. Hey Asagi, what happened? What was with the fire? The Uzumaki asked, since he was quite curious about the circumstances behind the fire. Asagi took a few deep breaths to calm herself. Before speaking, the Hokage tower was the scene of a burglary. Someone broke in and set the place on fire. They left a body behind, but it hasn't been identified yet. Strangely, the thief left behind the forbidden scroll to the flames. Whatever they were looking for, they wanted something specific. Unfortunately, I've been closed off from the investigation. Really, what happened? Naruto asked, since the Sandaime never really held any animosity towards her prior to now. What had changed so suddenly? Remember when I went to visit the Hokage after Sakura revealed who had tricked her, I gave him a warning that if he couldn't or wouldn't control his people, then I would take over by announcing my own candidacy as Hokage. It would seem he took it quite personally. Asagi answered with a small frown, her eyes narrowed slightly. I see. So the bastard threw a tantrum and kicked you off the case, eh? The blonde spoke, his voice dripping with annoyance. Talk about childish behavior. Wait, Asagi was planning on becoming Hokage? Damn if that happened. Wow, massive implications there. On another note, he couldn't think of anyone more worthy of the position given how strong his partner was and how kind she is too. Boo. I don't understand that old geezer at all. He lets his students go around doing as they please or lets his teammates get away with crap, but Asagi says she plans on becoming Hokage and he has a hissy fit talk about priorities. Sakura spoke as she shook her head disapprovingly. Agreed, and I don't plan on being kept out of the loop. I need to make a phone call. The Almighty Taimanin spoke and was about to head upstairs to use a telephone but was stopped when the Jinchuriki gently grabbed her by the wrist, which earned her attention. Wait, Asagi. Before you do, Sakura wanted to talk to us. About what? I'm not sure, Naruto said, earning a raised eyebrow from the brunette who looked between her younger sister and her partner. Yes, what is it? Sakura, does this have to do with why you were kind of moody earlier? Asagi asked, her tone of voice showing genuine concern for her younger sister. Sakura nodded her head as she swallowed a lump in her throat. Her nerves were getting to her, but she was going to try and say what needed to be said. She inhaled deeply and then blurted out, ITHINKMINLOVWITHIMASOSORRYSISBUTIREALLYREALLYKHIMALOTHIMTO. When she had finished, both Naruto and Asagi could only stare wide-eyed at the tomboy Taimanin as they both tilted their heads. Do you mind saying that a little slower? I caught the words Naruto and sorry, then the rest was lost in translation. The elder sister requested, since she hadn't a clue as to what her sister had said. Sorry. The truth is I think I might be in love with Naruto. I dunno why, but I fell hard and fast for you, Naruto-kun. Seeing you bring joy and happiness to my big sis, it made me want that too. I wanted to be with you too, but I didn't want to hurt you or Asagi. I tried bottling it up, but then I had a nightmare. It involved me trying to seduce you in your bed with Asagi sleeping right next to you. Then she was staring at me, giving me the evil eye. I feel so guilty. You two look so happy together and I don't want to get in the way of it, but at the same time I want to be loved like that too, Sakura explained, her face flushed as she admitted her feelings. Asagi was silent for a few moments, a thoughtful expression on her face. She was honestly surprised to hear this, and couldn't help but wonder how her sister had come to develop feelings for her chosen partner. Then again, he had a certain magnetic charisma about him that seemed to draw one in, especially if they spent enough time around him. She looked at her sister, and then looked at Naruto, who appeared to be a bit taken aback. I'm sorry, Asagi. I know that I'm being selfish right now. I'm a horrible person, Sakura spoke in a regretful tone. She didn't want to come between her sister and her partner, and yet she was feeling a growing affection for him. You're not a horrible person. One cannot help who they fall in love with. Still, this is surprising to say the least. The Almighty Taimanin muttered the last part while biting at the tip of her thumb. She glanced at the blonde who looked quite unsure about the situation, and then asked, "Well, Naruto, how do you feel about my sister?" "How do I feel? I mean, she's really cute, and a really great girl. Really fun to be around. Goes without saying she's really attractive, but I don't want to pick between the two of you and the other one getting hurt." He spoke as he rubbed the back of his head. "That's why I didn't say anything before. I didn't want to put you in that position." The Orangette whined as she looked down sadly. Sakura the Uzumaki began, but was interrupted when the older Taimanin placed a hand on his shoulder and looked him in the eyes. "There is another solution than choosing between us. Naruto, you don't have to choose at all." Asagi spoke in a gentle tone, her words making the blonde raise an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" he asked, not sure what the brunette was implying unless no, she couldn't be serious, could she? "Simple. I do not wish for my sister to be hurt either, just the same as she didn't want to hurt me or you. She deserves love as well. I propose that we both share you, Naruto-kun." The Almighty Taimanin answered, a smile forming on her face. Naruto felt a bead of sweat form on his forehead, and then asked is that even possible, having two girlfriends? He could scarcely believe that she was seriously suggesting the possibility of polygamy. While it wasn't exactly uncommon in the shinobi nations, it was a practice that was typically frowned upon in the hidden villages, though not necessarily illegal. Some seem to believe that it should only be reserved for those who carry line abilities. There is no law expressly forbidding it, nor is there a rule or condition stating that a Taimanin cannot share their partner with another Taimanin. For most people, sharing their chakra with more than one Taimanin would be quite taxing. For you though, I think you can handle it. This way, the both of us can be with you and nobody gets hurt. After all, this is Sakura we're talking about. I certainly don't mind sharing with her," Asagi answered, her lips curving into a sensual smirk as she added, "Though, you'll have to prove to me that you can keep the both of us satisfied." Asagi-chan, are you serious?" the younger Taimanin asked, since this was something that had caught her completely off guard. She never expected her sister to suggest such a thing, but she certainly wasn't against it. "Completely," she replied without missing a beat, her eyes glimmering with determination and a touch of playfulness. She then took on a more serious face as she spoke, "Though if we're doing this, there has to be some ground rules." Both the Uzumaki and tomboy Taimanin nodded in understanding and agreement, the former still having immense difficulty processing that he wasn't going to have one but two Taimanin as his partners, the Igawa sisters at that. He was literally entering a position that most men and even some women would probably kill to be in. He had best be careful not to take it for granted. He then cleared his throat and stated, not to sound greedy or like a perverted bastard, but if one girl joins in, there might be others." Asagi looked at her sister, then at Naruto, and smirked as she replied, "Of course. That's one of the rules. Any more girls that want and can join, but only if they have a genuine interest in you. Superficial relationships and one-night stands are strictly prohibited. The second rule is that being Naruto's first girlfriend, I am the officially designated alpha of the group." Sakura nodded her head slowly as the meaning behind the term sunk in. She knew what it meant. Asagi was the first girl to have a relationship with him, therefore she had the most seniority, and thus was the first. "Understood, but just because you're the alpha doesn't mean that you should get extra special treatment. I say that Naruto shouldn't play favorites and give everyone equal time and attention." "Fair enough," Asagi spoke with a nod, since that was a fair rule, since she didn't wish to monopolize Naruto's attention. Sakura and other potential girls deserved a fair turn as well. She then added one more rule: no fighting. "I understand that there may be competition for Naruto-kun's attention, but we mustn't let things run out of control and come to blows. If someone feels that the other is being too possessive or too demanding, the matter should be resolved calmly and rationally." The Orangette agreed as she nodded her head, before adding, "Got it. I think that covers the basics. If we need to add any more rules, we can do that later." "Sounds good. So I guess now the question is, Naruto-kun, how do you feel about my proposal?" the Almighty Taimanin spoke. She hoped he didn't think she was being too forward with this. "To be honest, I'm surprised. Not at all in a bad way though, just surprised. I guess this might be for the best, right? Everyone wins here. No one has to get their feelings hurt. No one has to make difficult choice. No cringeworthy melodrama," he answered with a smile. He was certainly looking forward to this. He then realized that perhaps he accepted this a bit too readily and worried that he might be on the path to becoming a pervert or something. "Heh, I think someone's hormones are doing the thinking for them," Sakura teased while poking at the Jinchuriki's cheeks, which made her elder sister chuckle a bit as the whiskered teen blushed a bit and made a quick apology. "One last thing. As the alpha and Naruto's first girlfriend, I hereby stake my claim to take his ID. That is non-negotiable. Do we have an understanding?" The brunette spoke, her tone serious and firm. This was one thing she wouldn't compromise on. She wasn't going to relinquish her first with him. "Oh yeah, no problem. That's fair," the Orangette replied without hesitation, since she could understand where her sister was coming from. It was a very intimate and personal experience, and something like that shouldn't be given up so easily. It was only fair that Asagi and Naruto shared their first times together. "If everything is out in the open and settled, please excuse me. I really need to make a phone call. I may not be able to get directly involved in the investigation, but there's always a workaround," Asagi stated in a serious tone, since she wasn't about to potentially leave the fate of the village in the hands of a foolish and senile old man. One more thing before you go, the whiskered teen quickly spoke up, catching the attention of both sisters as he continued. On my way home, I was approached by this girl. A very strange character. She had pink hair, red eyes, and pointed ears and was wearing a white dress. She said her name was Felicia but kept on calling herself Feli for short. There was something way off about her. She even told me that if I gave her the names of 3 people, she would kill them for me. He spoke the last part with a slight shudder. Both Asagi and Sakura exchanged looks with one another, with the elder sister muttering, "Felicia, that sounds vaguely familiar. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember anyone of that description." "Me either," Sakura added, since she was drawing a blank as well. The Igawa siblings seemed to be in deep concentration, as if they were trying to summon the needed information to the forefront of their minds, but their memories failed them. "Naruto, be very careful. We don't know who this girl is, what her motives are, or what she is capable of. Until we learn more about her, avoid her at all costs and try to stick with us as best you can," Asagi warned her partner in a serious tone, her expression conveying just how important it was to stay away from the mysterious Felicia. "I will. I don't want to be involved with anyone like her. If she's willing to kill for me, then I don't even want to know what else she's capable of," he replied as a bead of sweat trailed down his forehead. However, an intrusive thought entered his mind. If Felicia's offer was genuine, then all he had to do was give her a name and she'd end them, provided her promise was the real deal. While he didn't have anyone he specifically wanted dead at this time, that may yet change further down the road. Until then, it'd be best to keep his distance from her until he had a much better understanding of who or what he was dealing with. "Good. Now, if you'll both excuse me, I have an important phone call to make," the brunette stated, before she headed upstairs, her expression determined. She was going to get to the bottom of things, even if it meant taking a different approach than usual. Normally, she was a handsome type of person that preferred to handle things herself, but for now, she'd have to leave things to somebody else. Fortunately, there was a certain someone who would be more than happy to take this assignment for the right price. She picked up a telephone and dialed a certain number. Fortunately, she didn't have to wait for very long before someone picked up, prompting her to speak. "Hello. This is Asagi." "Yes, Asagi Igawa. I have a job for you." Yes. It does involve the recent fire." "No. If I could handle this myself, I would." "Yes, double HMPH, you're so greedy, but fine. I have no problem with that, provided that you be discreet." "Yes, that's fine. Thank you." Hanging up the phone, Asagi smiled softly. She had just taken the first step towards solving the mystery, since she didn't like leaving loose ends. That aside, the Hokage was clearly slipping up. On another note, she couldn't help but wonder, was this an isolated incident or the start of some sinister conspiracy? Meanwhile, Konoha Hospital. Uruka Yumino groaned quietly in bed as he stared absently at the ceiling. There was nothing good on television, nothing but reruns or various media outlets playing back the incident at either the academy or his appearance on that damn talk show. Kami, what a disaster. Now here he was with a hole in his stomach. At least the morphine kept the pain away and the bullet went clean through. He felt discomfort as the morphine wore off and was about to push the call button to let the nurse know, but stopped when the door opened as a grizzled old man and a girl with pink hair entered inside. He raised an eyebrow since their faces were largely obscured in darkness, but he quickly recognized the former and spoke. "Danzo Shimura, I certainly didn't expect you to show up. The Hokage said you tell him that whatever he heard, it's all nothing but lies. I'm a victim here. The Kyuubi is the one at fault." At first, the aged man said nothing as he stared at the scarred Chunin, a deep frown on his face as the atmosphere seemed to grow cold, with Uruka becoming quickly uncomfortable with the almost deafening silence, until the old veteran finally spoke. "Tell me about Edwin Black." Upon hearing the name, the Chunin grew pale and quickly looked off to the side as if ashamed and frightened. "We're not supposed to talk about him," he muttered while biting his lip, which caused the elder to frown and then jammed the tip of his cane against the Chunin's bullet wound, causing him to cry out in pain. "I have no patience with stonewalling, and I don't care about the gag order placed around Edwin. Tell me, now, I know you worked with him in the past," the veteran stated, pressing his cane harder against Uruka's wound. All right, I'll tell you. Just get that thing out of me, please," Uruka cried, tears streaming down his face. Danzo nodded his head and then removed the cane. The Chunin exhaled loudly, the pain in his gut feeling like a hot iron pressed against his skin. The scarred Chunin inhaled deeply and then spoke. "It's true. I worked with Black some years ago. I was his assistant, his mule. I got him coffee, ran errands for him, handled his papers, small stuff like that. I was directly involved in the laboratories, if that's what you're really curious about." "Do you remember anything, perhaps something in his paperwork?" the Warhawk asked while the pink-haired girl paced about in the background, a strangled little smirk on her face. "Come on, this was years ago. You really expect me to remember that kind of stuff? I could never make heads or tails of his research," Uruka responded, prompting the aged veteran to once again jab his cane against the Chunin's wound with a hardened gaze, making the Chunin once again yell out in pain. "You'd be amazed what a fellow can do under the right amount of pressure. I suggest you think really hard to recall anything like your life depends on it, on account that it does." Danzo spoke in a warning tone as the Chunin gritted his teeth and then looked away as he began thinking as quickly as possible, and then as if a light blinked on, a memory seemed to flash before his eyes. Okay. I remember that some of his papers involved reports about you and Orochimaru. He seemed to be keeping tabs on you both. For what and why I don't know, he cried, the pain in his stomach growing more intense with every second. Really, now that is interesting, the aged warhawk muttered as he lowered his cane, a thoughtful expression on his face. Just what had Black been up to? So many questions, and most of, if not all of the answers lied buried with Black or had been expunged from the official record. Still, at the very least, this helped provide another piece of the puzzle. Look, that's all I can remember. I swear you have to believe me, the scarred Chunin pleaded with a look of desperation, sweat beading down his face as his body began trembling, largely from the pain. Danzo ignored him and began to step outside, making a quick gesture to the Pinkette, who gained a sadistic smile on her face as she approached the Chunin. Don't worry, Feli will be gentle, she spoke, a dark gleam in her red eyes. Uruka's eyes widened in horror and fear as she snatched a pillow from beneath his head and then pressed it hard against his face, causing the injured man to panic as he struggled desperately to push her away. The Pinkette smiled darkly as she watched the Chunin flail about like a dying fish, struggling to free himself. His muffled screams and pleas for help fell on deaf ears. Nobody could hear him, not with the doors closed and the pillow muffling him. He tried to kick and hit her, but Felicia simply used her enhanced strength to pin him down. The Pinkette hummed lightly, as if this was nothing more than a pleasant daydream or something, as her grip on the pillow tightened. The man's muffled cries and pleas for mercy growing weaker and quieter as his arms and legs twitched violently before eventually falling still. Done, Felicia spoke in a rather nonchalant tone, before replacing the pillow beneath Uruka's head, revealing the lifeless face of the Chunin, whose eyes were rolled back into his skull, his mouth agape. She then turned her attention to Danzo, who stood waiting patiently. Did you find what you were looking for? She asked, as if murder was no big deal. The aged warhawk simply nodded his head and replied back, not as much as I wanted, but more than what I was expecting out of someone so disposable. It would seem that Black was planning something prior to his death, unless he fell silent at the end, causing the crimson-eyed girl to raise an eyebrow. Unless what? She asked as she rocked back and forth on her heels, her question causing the aged man to glare at her with his lone eye, and then replied with a curt never mind. The two then departed the room. As soon as they exited, a group of Ambu with blank masks entered inside to clean up the murder. As far as anyone was concerned, the man that was Uruka Yumino simply vanished into obscurity, and in time wouldn't even be so much as a memory or even a footnote. Back at the Igawa residence, Naruto Uzumaki sat upon the couch, quietly processing the day's events. Heck of a day to say the least. Training, an appearance on a talk show, a fire, meeting a strange girl, and being confessed to by Sakura, and ending up with the potential start of a harem. Life just couldn't be simple, could it? If nothing else, it definitely kept him on his toes. Still, if the ladies were fine with sharing him, then he certainly didn't mind sharing the love. He supposed that at the end of the day it just meant his family would be potentially bigger now. He didn't even know how this would work, since he had never been involved in polygamy. Hell, until a short while ago he didn't even have a girlfriend until Asagi entered his life. He wasn't even sure how he was supposed to handle 2 girls, let alone more than that. He supposed that he would just have to love them, cherish them, and avoid giving preferential treatment. As long as everyone was happy, then perhaps things would work themselves out. Naruto-kun, Sakura spoke, catching his attention as he looked up at her. She was currently flaunting her body by wearing a sports bra and a tight little pair of shorts that clung tightly to her curves and showed off her legs. Whoa, was all the blonde could say as heat rose to his cheeks, his eyes roving over the Orangette's body, taking in her slender and toned build, her smooth unblemished skin, and her soft supple curves. She was a real knockout. The tomboy Taimanin grinned and spoke in a teasing tone. Hee. Big sis said, I couldn't take your first time, but I can still tease you a bit. She casually plopped herself down next to him with a cute wink, her eyes twinkling playfully. So what's on your mind? She asked him, her expression becoming slightly more serious. Naruto sighed and shrugged his shoulders, just processing, I guess. Then a bit of a whirlwind today, he answered back, the Orangette nodding her head in agreement. I bet. Anyways, I have a little surprise I think you might like. She spoke with a large grin, which made the Uzumaki raise an eyebrow. Yet another surprise. If this kept up, his brain would likely implode at any moment. To his surprise and confusion, the tomboy Taimanin retrieved some sort of official-looking letter between her fingers that she offered to him. He accepted it and read over the contents, and his eyes widened a bit. You're being asked to oversee the Academy's graduation exam tomorrow, he asked, having not realized that the exams had arrived so quickly. Then again, given recent events, it has been kind of a blur for him. Yep, I got that earlier today while you and Sis were out. Since they're understaffed due to your former teachers being out of action, the Academy has asked me to fill in. I think it might also be an excuse to get me to pick a potential partner, she added with a small chuckle, earning an eye roll from the Uzumaki. Kind of a moot point, since I guess we're together now, he responded as he returned the letter to her, as the Orangette gave a beaming grin. Maybe. Still, I could really use your input since you know your classmates best. Plus maybe I want to show you off a little. She spoke with a cheeky smile, her words making the Uzumaki hum in thought for a moment. Maybe it was a little petty of him, but this could be a chance to get back at his former classmates who mistreated him. More importantly, the quality of education at the Academy was nothing short of a joke, and there was also a distinct lack of discipline. Sounds fun. Maybe we could also invite Asagi, he asked, since he didn't want to leave her out of this. Plus he had an idea for a small prank as well. Invite me to what the Almighty Taimanin asked with a raised eyebrow. She was currently in the kitchen area and was sipping a glass of orange juice. I'm gonna be helping oversee the graduation exam for Naruto's class. Naruto was just asking if we could invite you, Sakura explained to her elder sister, with the Almighty Taimanin adopting a thinking pose. With the possibility of her having to become Hokage seeming more and more likely, it would be most prudent to gain a better understanding of the various issues plaguing the village. One of the most important being the academy and what was being taught there. Given that Naruto had been a student there for some time, he would have plenty of insight to share. Naruto-kun, we'll be counting on you to advise us and share your knowledge of your former classmates. The blonde nodded his head, a confident smile on his face as he replied back, leave it to me, Asagi-chan. His smile widening even further since for the first time in a long time he was actually looking forward to attending the academy exams. Meanwhile, Aburo's apartment. The treacherous Taimanin sighed as she reclined on her couch, wearing an elegant red dress and nursing a glass of red wine. She raised a hand towards a record player and brought the needle down upon the black disc, causing soft music to fill the apartment as the song began to play. She sipped her wine as she listened to the lyrics. I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks. He wore black and I wore white. He would always win the fight. Bang bang, he shot me down. Bang bang, I hit the ground. Bang bang, that awful sound. Bang bang, my baby shot me down. She sighed as she looked down at a photograph of herself with a well-dressed man standing in some sort of laboratory. Seasons came and changed the time. When I grew up, I called him mine. He would always laugh and say, remember when we used to play. Bang bang, I shot you down. Bang bang, you hit the ground. Bang bang, that awful sound. Bang bang, I used to shoot you down. She sipped her wine again and glanced at newspaper clipping with large and bold words that read shocking death. The head of the Taimanin initiative, Edwin Black, confirmed dead after tragic accident. Music played and people sang. Just for me the church bells rang. Now he's gone, I don't know why. Until this day, sometimes I cry. He didn't even say goodbye. He didn't take the time to lie. Bang bang, he shot me down. Bang bang, I hit the ground. Bang bang, that awful sound. Bang bang, my baby shot me down. As the song came to an end, Aburo frowned and sighed as she took another long sip of wine. What a mess. You left me with quite a mess, Edwin. She muttered a little bitterly and frowned deeply. There were so many things that needed doing. So many loose ends that needed to be tied up. Her own plans needed to be accelerated. There was simply too much to do and too little time to do it in. Not to mention she had that old warhawk breathing down her neck. Nevertheless, she needed to continue with her work. She had certain preparations she needed to make, and while she was attending to her business she might have a little fun with that charming little Naruto boy in the not-so-distant future. Naruto's eyes fluttered open as he woke up. He gave a small yawn as he stirred from his slumber only to realize that his movements were restricted. He blinked a few times and looked on both sides of himself, then smiled as he found the Igawa sisters snuggling up to him as if he were a human plushie. After their talk about their newfound relationship, the two sisters decided that they would all sleep together in the same bed in Kami. It was perhaps some of the best sleep that the Jinchuriki had ever gotten. He was happy. The warmth radiating off of the sisters was a wonderful thing and he could get used to this. It made him feel safe and loved. He smirked a bit and planted on the forehead of each sister, causing them to stir from their slumber and blink their eyes a bit. They both smiled warmly at him and each planted a quick peck on his lips. Good morning, sleep well, Sakura asked as she gave a flirty wink, prompting the Uzumaki to chuckle and nod. Come, we should eat some breakfast before going to the academy. I sort of wonder if the students have improved since the previous teacher's absence. If not, I certainly worry for Konoha's future. Asagi mused at the end, fearing that the academy was leaning towards a quantity over quality approach. She didn't like the idea of sending out potential genin who were unprepared mentally and physically for the shinobi lifestyle. The two Taimanin slid off of Naruto's side and the young teen got out of bed while popping his joints. The younger Igawa sister volunteered to prepare breakfast for this morning and quickly dashed off, promising to prepare a large helping of bacon and eggs for them all. Once we are done at the academy, we'll do some more training. I think we'll try and drill you in some swordsmanship today. Now, remember, me and Sakura will be counting on your knowledge and input. I know you might have some old grudges, but try to be neutral. The whiskered teen nodded in understanding as he replied, sure. I'll do the best I can. Though that won't stop me from giving my honest opinion. There are some students there that I don't believe are worthy of being ninjas. Largely the fangirls. His words made Asagi grimace a bit at the mentioning of fangirls. I expect nothing less than honesty from you. I assure you that we shall take your words under great consideration. Now come on, we should eat. Never a good idea to go out on an empty stomach. The Almighty Taimanin stated as the two headed downstairs where Sakura was already putting the finishing touches on their respective servings. She had even laid out some of the treats that Naruto had received before from Asuka, Meika, Shiranui, and Yukikaze. Here we are, eat up and enjoy, the younger sister stated cheerfully as she brought out the plates, each carrying a large helping of eggs, 2 pieces of toast, and 3 strips of bacon along with a glass of milk and orange juice. Naruto took a seat and quickly began to dig into his meal, humming happily as he took a sip from his milk. This is delicious. Thank you very much, Sakura," Naruto complimented, causing the younger sister to blush brightly. She enjoyed it when the young Uzumaki gave her compliments or even thanked her for something. It made her heart beat just a bit faster and her cheeks a bit redder. Was this what love was supposed to be like? It definitely gave her the warm and fuzzies. Asagi also seemed to appreciate the cooking skills of her little sister. The eggs were scrambled to perfection. The bacon was just crisp enough and the toast was nice and toasty. A perfect meal, and the best part was, Sakura made it with love for both her new partner and her big sister. The Orangette also couldn't wait to show off her new relationship. She was already picturing herself and her sister walking with Naruto side by side, holding his hands, giving him on the cheek. The list goes on and on. The trio chowed down on their meals, each one enjoying their meal, savoring the taste of the delicious bacon and eggs and enjoying the tasty treats for dessert. After their meal was finished, the trio began to get ready, dressing up with sisters wearing their signature bodysuit and getting their gear ready. Naruto put on one of his custom suits, a dark green one with his own gear kept safely stored within the storage seals hidden in the sleeves. Once they were all ready, the trio departed towards the academy, their arms linked together with the sisters having joyful smiles and the blonde himself grinning from ear to ear as they exited the Taimanin district and walked through the village streets. As they moved, they could see several of the villagers staring at them with mixed reactions. Some were disgusted, others were curious, a few were smiling. Some were even looking at them with envy. Every so often there was the flash of a camera and the trio would wave at the paparazzi in question, not even bothered by the fact they were being photographed. They didn't care, they were together now and wanted the world to know. That aside, the village would find out sooner or later anyway. It wasn't long before the three arrived at the academy and they entered the grounds, with the young Uzumaki having to suppress a frown since he didn't have many good memories here. Though that was in the past. He was no longer Uruka's prisoner here. Now he was free and was in a relationship with the famed Igawa sisters who were as beautiful inside as they were on the outside. Almost immediately upon entry, a Chunin teacher came running up to greet them. It was a spectacled female teacher that the Uzumaki almost barely recognized. Suzume was the name. Sakura-san, welcome, we're so happy to have you here. You even brought your sister. Wonderful. The presence of you both will definitely encourage the students to try harder. The female Chunin spoke with a deferential smile as she glanced between the sisters, seemingly ignoring the whiskered teen who was literally standing between the Igawa siblings. The elder sister gave a gruff ahem and seemed to tilt her head towards the Jinchuriki himself as she gave the teacher a stern glare. Suzume quickly corrected herself and began bowing repeatedly as she then spoke abruptly with forced politeness, and welcome to you as well, Naruto-san. So nice to have a former student attending. I'm sure your classmates will be happy to see you again. Uha, the blonde muttered blankly. He could practically smell the insincerity rolling off the woman. Even so, he felt a small sense of satisfaction that she and many others will be forced to up to him due to his connection to Asagi and now Sakura as well. I wanted to bring my sister along to assist in judging the students. Naruto-kun is here to give us additional input and information about his former classmates. The tomboy Taimanin explained as she planted on her new partner's cheek, followed swiftly by her elder sister who gave of her own to the Jinchuriki. Suzume's eyes widened in shock as she watched the two sisters act so affectionate towards the boy as it registered in her mind that they were both in relations with him. That's not a traditional approach, but I'll leave it to your discretion. Anyway, we're glad to have you here, Sakura-san. I will guide you to the exam room now, please follow me. The spectacled woman muttered as she adjusted her glasses and turned on her heel to lead the trio towards their destination. Sakura and Asagi both grabbed a hold of Naruto's arms and began to walk along with him, keeping him in between themselves. The Chunin teacher tried her hardest not to stare at the scene and seemed to be using her own clipboard to hide her face as the trio quietly and inwardly laughed at her reaction. The group entered the exam room where they would be judging Naruto's former classmates. The female Chunin explained that she would usher the students in one by one and the sisters would then judge the students' performance. With that said, Suzume quickly departed the room and the Igawa sisters and Uzumaki took a seat near the table that would use to examine the students. Fortunately, there were plenty of chairs available with the Uzumaki sitting between the sisters. The two sisters each picked up a clipboard and pen, the former having a list of names with each name also having a box that was marked pass and fail beside the name. Word of warning, I wouldn't set your hopes too high for most of my former classmates, the Uzumaki stated as he leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms over his. Why is that? Sakura questioned as she flipped through the pages of names. Apparently the tomboy Taimanin was perhaps unaware of the fangirls present within the academy, more specifically the Sasuke fangirls that were in Naruto's class. You'll see what I mean, he replied vaguely, with the younger sister raising an eyebrow while the elder pursed her lips and already had an idea as to what her partner was referring to. Asagi cleared her throat and pointed to the first name on the list and asked him, do you recognize this one? The blonde took a quick glance at the name she was referring to and his immediate and blunt response was fangirl. Almost as if on cue, the student in question was ushered in and let out an excited screech since she was now in the same room as the famed Igawa sisters, with said siblings immediately cringing while the whiskered teen slowly shook his head. Asagi then cleared her throat and requested the student to perform a henge, a substitution and a clone jutsu in any order, along with an optional jutsu of her own choosing for extra credit. The fangirl obeyed and attempted to perform said techniques, the keyword here being attempted, as she failed in rather spectacular fashion. Sighing, the sisters immediately marked her for her failure and dismissed her. Afterwards came a string of Sasuke fangirls, each one failing miserably. Then came some civilian students who just barely managed to pass by the skin of their teeth with a questionable performance that left the sisters rather skeptical. Please tell me this one has some skill, Asagi muttered as she massaged her temple with one hand while using the other to point towards the next name on the list. If it wasn't obvious before, it was very painfully plain to see. Now that the students weren't being adequately trained as shinobi. Perhaps worse, the teachers weren't properly disciplining them and enabling this fangirl behavior, definitely troubling to say the least. Shino Aburame, honestly, out of all the students in my class, I am certain I interacted with him the least. He's a real quiet guy, but from what I know about him, he's no pushover. Definitely a strategist. Not on the same level as a member of the Nara clan, but definitely up there. Cool as a Kyuubi too, the whiskered teen explained, earning nods from the siblings. This Shino sounded very promising. The bug user entered and gave a courteous bow to the trio, then spoke curtly but politely, "A pleasure to meet you, Sakura and Asagi Igawa. Naruto-san, congratulations on your new position. I wish you the best of luck." The two sisters and their partner nodded in thanks, with the younger sibling gesturing for Shino to perform the required jutsu. Unsurprisingly to Naruto, the Aburame clan heir flawlessly performed the 3 Academy jutsu, then briefly demonstrated one of his clan's techniques by summoning some insects. Asagi sincerely thanked him for his display and gave Shino a passing mark, earning a nod of thanks from the bug user as he quietly departed. The next student on the list earned a small frown from the Jinchuriki as he spoke. Next up is Kiba Inuzuka and of course his partner Akamaru. Kiba's got talent in his clan's taijutsu and techniques, but he's a major horndog with some weird belief that he's an alpha. Don't be surprised if he starts hitting on you. The sisters gratefully accepted the warning as the aforementioned horndog appeared with a loud yell of Yahoo, earning a pair of sweat drops from the siblings. Didn't get the chance to say it before, Naruto, but you have done very well for yourself, landing one of the best and hottest babes out there. Hell, I saw you on TV the other night too. Great stuff. Hey, Sakura is up for grabs, right? Hey babe, if you're looking for a partner, look no further than the alpha material standing before you. Kiba spoke in a crass manner while wiggling his eyebrows in a suggestive manner, which made the younger sister feel a sudden urge to vomit, while the elder sibling contemplated strangling the dog boy with her bare hands. Naruto, however, got a devious little smirk on his face and spoke, "Not sorry to break the news to you, Kiba, but Sakura's already been claimed." At his words, the Igawa sisters both grinned while the Inuzuka in question had a look of confusion on his face. Wait, what now? Kiba asked, since it hadn't yet been made public that the Uzumaki was now with both sisters. Of course, that was only a matter of time. The orangeette quickly leaned over and planted a long on the whiskered teen's cheek, which prompted the Inuzuka heir to point from Naruto to the two sisters and back again as he spoke. Wait, I'm confused. Aren't you with Asagi? I am. However, she and her sister are also with me, Naruto explained as he wrapped an arm around each sibling. His words caused the dogman's jaw to drop, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. What the hell, that's just not right, man, Kiba stated, looking a bit horrified and even a bit jealous at the fact that the blonde managed to land 2 babes while he couldn't even land one. Hell, Naruto had hooked up with a pair of sisters, the Igawa sisters no less. It was a bit unfair in his mind. Perform the required jutsu, Asagi requested sternly as she fought to keep her irritation in check, though it helped that she was kind of enjoying watching the dogman bristle with jealousy. The young Uzumaki's presence also helping her to remain calm. Yeah, right. Just give me a second, Kiba muttered as he shook his head and did his best to concentrate on the task at hand, though he couldn't help but continue giving jealous looks towards his former classmate. The test without further incident as the canine shinobi performed the required jutsu, followed by the man-beast clone technique with Akamaru. With that done, Asagi shooed him out after giving him a passing mark, all the while grumbling to himself about lucky bastard blondes. Once he was gone, the trio shared a good laugh together at Kiba's expense and continued on with the exams. The next student on their list was Shikamaru Naru. Upon seeing the name, the Jinchuriki gave his input as he spoke. Shikamaru pretty much fits the Nara clan stereotype. Smart as hell and definitely lazy. However, when it comes down to the wire, he'll pull through in a pinch. He's also loyal to his friends. Lazy yet reliable, Asagi mused quietly as the young Nara himself strolled in with his hands in his pockets while giving off a bored yawn. Without even being asked, he performed the required techniques followed by a demonstration of his own clan techniques before departing. The sisters exchanged looks as they noticed a particular trend. All of the civilian students only barely managed to perform the bare minimum and had no additional jutsu in their arsenal to fall back on. Meanwhile, the clan heirs easily demonstrated the 3 required techniques in their own clan's respective jutsu. A rather worrying trend indeed if the civilian students weren't being properly prepared. As if fangirls being present wasn't enough, if the competent students weren't getting proper training, then they would definitely struggle in later shinobi training and missions, or worse, end up suffering a most terrible fate while on said missions, provided that their Jonin sensei passes them on the actual genin exam, though again, a lack of training will make said exam that much harder for them. So who's next on our list of potential future ninjas and useless rejects? Sakura asked as they checked the roster again, the next name on the list causing Naruto to give a visible shudder and loud groan. Sakura, the whiskered teen muttered, earning a confused look from the siblings, with the younger sister asking what was that. How can I be on the list? Her question made the blonde chuckle and shake his head with a rueful smile. Sakura effing Haruno, the fangirliest fangirl that ever fangirled. As far as fangirls go, she is a whole other breed in her own right. It has never been confirmed, but there's been long-standing rumor that she had a shrine dedicated to Sasuke tucked away in her closet, and that she once made out with a bench that he sat on. Not sure if that is true, but it had been a persistent rumor. As a student, she's labeled as top Kunoichi due to her book smarts but has basically no practical skills. In theory, if she were to drop the fangirl attitude and start seriously dedicating herself to training, she might become a competent Kunoichi. Oh, and not to sound vindictive, but she also has a hair-trigger temper and has frequently clocked me for even the slightest provocation, sometimes no reason at all. Uzumaki explained, earning frowns from the Igawa siblings. That certainly didn't bode well at all. It is considered traditional for the top Kunoichi of the class to be paired with Rookie of the Year. Asagi quietly mused, knowing that an obsessive fangirl being paired with the object of her desire was definitely a recipe for disaster. Best case scenario, she'd be the Uchiha's yes woman who would do or say anything to get in his good graces and enable his already toxic behavior. At worst, a liability that may inadvertently sabotage her own team or worse. I've heard enough, shouted a screechy voice as the door was roughly shoved open and in stomped the Haruno herself, who was glaring at the Uzumaki, who currently seemed like he wanted to be anywhere except in the same room as her, while facebumming himself while the Pinkette pointed an accusatory finger at him and continued screeching, I heard you talking crap about me, Naruto Baka. I'm not gonna forgive you for that. Not my fault. You are a one-dimensional character with little substance. If you want to be taken seriously, then try acting like a decent person. The blonde quipped back irritably, causing the Haruno to clench her fist, her face turning red as she seemed ready to charge at him but was stopped when Asagi cut in. If you are to have any hope of ever going on a mission with your crush, I suggest you pass this test, Asagi stated while tapping at her clipboard for emphasis. The Haruno immediately plastered on a fake smile and began up to the famed Taimanin, which made both siblings and their young partner to roll their eyes in annoyance, since they shared a mutual disliking for fake people. Yeah, the pink-haired fangirl had a long way to go. The Banshee then showed off the 3 basic techniques and managed to pass with a rather standard performance. Asagi immediately dismissed her and waved her out of the exam room. Once the Pinkette was gone, she wrote down a note that stated, do not put on the same team as Sasuke Uchiha. May need rehabilitation to successfully function in her role as a Kunoichi. It was a good thing that she didn't make any promises that the Haruno would be joining her crush. Let's move on. Next is Hinata Hyuga. Nice girl. Definitely has skill for in her clan's taijutsu, no surprise there. I think her biggest hurdle is her shy and timid nature. If she can get a teacher that can help coax her out of her shell, I think she'd really thrive. Naruto spoke as he gave his honest input, earning some relieved sighs from his partners, who were grateful for a more normal student to appear. The Hyuga heiress entered and gave a respectful bow to each of them and even offered some kind words of congratulations to the Uzumaki. But there also seemed to be a small tinge of sadness and maybe even jealousy in her eyes, though she didn't voice this. Hinata simply and quietly performed the basic 3 techniques, followed by one of her clan's own signature techniques before leaving. Another passing student and clan heir. No surprise. Chouji Akamichi. Gentle giant is the words that come to mind with him. Loves to eat. Not a mean bone in his body, just don't call him fat, that's a major trigger for him. He never liked participating in class spars, but I wouldn't underestimate him either. Him and Shikamaru are best friends and are very loyal to each other. The Jinchuriki spoke, causing the siblings to nod in understanding as the Akamachi heir walked inside with a bag of chips in hand. Inexplicably, he performed all 3 techniques, plus his clan's partial expansion jutsu, all while holding his chips, and then left with a little spring in his step as he was given a passing mark. Naruto chuckled a little at the display before continuing, now comes Ino Yamanaka, the Academy's resident gossip queen. She can be kinda bossy, but not in a mean-spirited way. She also is, or at least was, something of a Sasuke fangirl, but nowhere near the same levels as the others, and unlike said fangirls, Ino actually learned how to handle herself. Unlike a lot of people, she was actually pretty nice to me. I remember her. She appeared in Aishwarya's show with you. She seemed like a nice girl, Asagi stated with a small smile as the Yamanaka heiress stepped inside with a slightly nervous smile and gave a friendly wave to the trio. The brunette returned the smile while wondering to herself if the famed Ino Shikacho trio would be reformed again with the next generation, while also questioning if that would be wise. Just because old strategies worked before didn't mean that they would work again after all. Well, I'm here. Let's do this thing, the blonde-haired Yamanaka announced with a grin, earning a smile from the trio and a nod of encouragement from the older Igawa sibling. Straight to business then, she liked this girl. After clearing her throat, Asagi instructed her to demonstrate the 3 Academy jutsu, followed by an example of her clan's techniques if she so chose, to which Ino obliged without issue as she flawlessly performed the 3 technique but refrained from using her own clan's jutsu on the grounds that she didn't wish to invade their minds, which they greatly appreciated, though Asagi still gave her bonus marks anyway. Hey Naruto, offer still stands if you want to hang out sometime. Would be nice to talk to someone that's real. Ino whispered the last part, her expression and tone indicating that she was being serious and sincere as she smiled and departed, earning an appreciative nod from the Jinchuriki and promised to arrange a time that they could meet up. It would definitely be nice to connect with his former classmate again. Nice girl, Sakura murmured while looking thoughtful, her mind working a mile a minute and putting two and two together. She was certain that the Yamanaka and the Uzumaki had something of a bond between them and then added, I wonder if she likes you. The Orangeette spoke with a little wink while grinning at the Jinchuriki, teasing him a little. What now? The blonde blurted out, blinking rapidly as he felt his cheeks heat up a bit. Sakura giggled at his response while the eldest sibling gave a small chuckle while shaking her head at the pair. He gave a small and dismissive scoff as he responded, I don't think she likes me in that way. We're just friends. I doubt she would be romantically interested in me. Who knows, though. I think it is worth pointing out that if she didn't like you she wouldn't have asked you out. That aside, I wonder what she wants to talk to you about. It could be just a casual chat over lunch, or she may want to make it a date. The Orangeette teased, enjoying the fact that she was making her partner blush. He nervously drummed his fingers atop the desk, then asked to change the subject, are there any more students to go through? Quite mercifully. The elder sister chuckled a bit, then immediately frowned as she silently pointed towards the final name on the list. The blonde did a brief head count as he quietly listed off the students they had already gone through, then realized that the last one was none other than Sasuke Uchiha, the damned golden boy of the academy. Can we just fail him? The Jinchuriki asked with the Almighty Taimanin very briefly and seriously considering his request, but sadly shook her head, which made him sigh and then offer his input. Pretty sure you know Sasuke's story. The Uchiha massacre, wanting revenge against his brother, etc., etc. Sasuke's got talent, no doubt about that. He's really good with fire jutsu and is skilled in his clan's taijutsu. However, he has been coddled and handed over almost everything he wanted. I'm kinda surprised he hasn't just been given his shinobi headband on a solid gold platter. At any rate, his number one weakness is his overly inflated ego and belief in Uchiha's superiority and his own abilities. Honestly speaking, I think his mental stability is also highly questionable, since I'm not certain whether he was given proper therapy or a clean bill of mental health after the massacre. That is not a good combination, Asagi muttered as she rubbed her forehead with a frown. A superiority complex coupled with delusions of grandeur and an unhealthy fixation on revenge was definitely a bad combination and made him potentially a danger not just to others, but to himself as well. Well, no sense putting it off any longer, the Almighty Taimanin then stated after taking a deep breath and mentally bracing herself, as she had a feeling that this could go very badly, especially given Naruto's earlier encounter with the Uchiha. The self-proclaimed Avenger marched in with his hands in his pockets, a deep scowl on his face as he glared at the Uzumaki. It seemed he was still sore about the blonde's prior rejection when the Uchiha tried to buy him off and the well-deserved albeit brief beating that the Uzumaki gave him. Sasuke then averted his attention to Asagi and seemed to be appraising her, not in the way a person would observe someone that they found attractive. It was more like he seemed to be inspecting a weapon that he could use for his own selfish benefit. You, tell me everything about Itachi, Sasuke demanded straight out of the gate, which earned an annoyed eye roll from his former classmate, who was mouthing fail him to Asagi almost pleadingly, since he desperately wanted to see the golden boy punished for his behavior. Not to mention it would be pretty sweet to see the Uchiha kept a prisoner in the academy. Once again, Asagi denied his request and responded to the elite, perhaps if you had asked me respectfully in the beginning, I would have. Now then, perform the required techniques immediately. Do or say anything else and I will fail you right here, Asagi threatened, her tone low and icy. The Uchiha seemed like he very much wanted to protest, but the only thing that stopped him was that if she did indeed carry out her threat, then he may be stuck in the academy for another year. With a low growl, Sasuke performed the three jutsu, and while he wished to show off the fire jutsu, it wasn't exactly a safe technique to perform indoors. With a huff, he left, but not without giving both Naruto and Asagi some nasty looks, the latter making a small note that Reed needs psychiatric evaluation and potential rehabilitation. Instability may prove disastrous. Kami, I hate that guy, Naruto muttered, hoping that he may never have to see the asshole ever again, even if it was a pipe dream, since he had no doubt he'd be seeing the Uchiha again. Preferably much later rather than sooner. I wouldn't worry too much. After all, he and all the others still have the genin exam to go through, Sakura stated as she leaned back in her seat and kicked her feet up on the desk with a somewhat wide grin. Come again, didn't they just pass the exam? Naruto asked in confusion, since he wasn't aware of this. Did she mean to imply that there was some sort of follow-up exam? Do you honestly believe that knowing such basic techniques is enough to become a fully fledged genin? No. The academy exam is but a preliminary to find potential genin. The real exam comes from their Jonin sensei after team assignments to separate the wheat from the chaff, Asagi explained with a little smirk, earning an eye of understanding from her partner. She then pursed her lips for a moment, since what she didn't say was that she had a strong hunch as to who Sasuke sensei would be, and she strongly doubted that the man would be impartial. Though on the other hand, not even Kakashi would bend the rules that much, would he? Please excuse me, I should probably check in with the Hokage and give my report. I have a few concerns to speak with him about the academy's current status and the quality of education. Asagi spoke while rubbing her temples since it seemed that the village was only stagnating and said stagnation was only worsening with each passing year. If this kept up, then Konoha would become a perpetual laughingstock. I'll help train Naruto-kun for today. You do whatever it is you have to do. Sakura spoke encouragingly, which helped take some weight off of her elder sister's shoulders as she gave a thankful nod. I'll catch up with you two later, the brunette promised before she picked up her clipboard and made her way towards the mission assignment office where she was certain the Sandaime would be, no doubt coordinating repairs for the Hokage Tower. I'll meet you outside, Sakura. I kinda have to use the bathroom right now. Naruto spoke as he got up from his seat and headed towards the nearest restroom, leaving the tomboy Taimanin behind to briefly converse with her sister. He hummed quietly to himself since the exams could have gone a whole lot worse, though it was a lot more tedious than he thought it would be. At least he didn't have to worry about the other fangirls anymore. Kami knows that he ran the risk of hearing loss every single day he had to spend in the same room with them, especially a certain Haruno. The blonde sighed heavily as he stepped into the bathroom and went over to the nearest urinal, unzipping his pants and let nature run its course. Once he finished, the Uzumaki zipped up his pants, flushed, and moved over to the sinks. He washed his hands and began drying them off, then felt as if he were being watched as he felt the hairs on his neck stand on end. When he looked back up at the mirror, he saw the form of Aburo leaning against the stalls with a salacious grin on her face as she wiggled her fingers in his direction in greeting. "Hello, Naruto. So nice to see you again." "Not you again," he muttered disdainfully and then added, "You do realize that this is the men's restroom, right?" "It is, and you're the only one in here, so I have you all to myself." Aburo spoke as she slowly approached him. The way she was walking and the way she was speaking was clearly meant to be seductive, but the only thing that he felt was unease. He wanted to march out as quickly as possible, but found his body trapped in place for some reason, his body refusing to obey his commands as he tried and failed to so much as move even an inch. "Hey, what did you do to me?" he asked, knowing that the only possibility was that the treacherous Taimanin had used some sort of trick to paralyze him. But how some sort of technique toxin, he believed it to be the former. Tut, my dear, no need to fuss. I just wanted to apologize for my earlier behavior. It was quite rude of me." She spoke her words in tone like honey, but they were also insincere. Her eyes were practically screaming mine as she ate her lips and moved closer. The blonde tried to back away, but he could barely even twitch, and the best he could do was clench his fists and teeth. "Apology not accepted. You were trying to get under Asagi's skin. You still are. Now let me go," where he tried to speak but was cut off by the red-haired woman. "Or what you'll call for them, they can't hear you from here. Still, like I already said, no need to fuss, I'm not here for that. I simply forgot to give you a little welcoming gift." She spoke with a saucy grin, and then the Uzumaki felt his body somehow relax as he experimentally moved his limbs and found that he could move of his own volition now. "I doubt you have anything that I'd want," he replied and began to march towards the door, only to find his feet were now locked in place in mid-step, making him sigh in frustration. "Oh, I think you'll want this gift. The gift of information. Normally, this would cost you a small fortune, but seeing as how these are exceptional circumstances, I'm going to give this information to you for free." Aburo responded as she stepped in front of him, cupping his chin in her hand as she minded before releasing him again from whatever method she was using to control him. "What's the catch?" he asked incredulously, since he doubted that she was the type of person to offer anything without some sort of strings attached. "No catch," she responded coolly as she inspected her nails in a casual manner. "What's the angle?" he persisted, earning an amused laugh from the femme fatale as she smirked at him and replied, "You are shrewd, aren't you? My compliments." "There is no angle." In spite of her words, he could tell that she wasn't being entirely honest, but at the same time he didn't sense any malicious intentions either this time. "Before I share my gift to you, I have to ask, do you have any idea what you truly are to this village?" she asked while pointing her index finger towards his stomach, her question making him stiffen up as he already guessed what she was implying. "Yeah, I'm a Jinchuriki." Didn't take very much to connect the dots. "I was born October 10th, the night of the Kyuubi attack. People whisper behind my back when they think I'm out of earshot and call me things like demon brat or kitsune bastard. I tried to ignore this for a long time. I guess I kinda put blinders on myself so I wouldn't have to face the truth, but even so I knew." "Your point?" he asked at the end, wondering why she was bringing up that aspect of his life up of all things. "What if I told you that a certain organization known as Akatsuki have taken a keen interest in hunting the Biju and their respective containers?" Aburo asked, her words making the blonde's eyes widen a bit in surprise upon hearing that. "What is this Akatsuki? Who are they? Why do they want the Biju?" he asked quickly, a little concerned now that he heard their name, not to mention the fact that they were specifically looking for him as well. If they wanted the Biju, then it definitely couldn't be for anything good given the sheer destructive potential of the beasts. From my understanding, Akatsuki initially started off as a burgeoning rebel movement in aim that sought to overthrow the legendary Hanzo the Salamander. After their rebellion, they went dark for some time before reappearing yet again as a mercenary group comprised of rogue ninjas. Orochimaru of the Sannin was a member up until he splintered off due to a conflict of interests, and another member I am aware of is none other than the infamous clan killer himself, Itachi Uchiha. Aburo spoke, the mentioning of Itachi making Naruto swallow dryly. The famed prodigy that was Itachi was certainly a heavy hitter. Many hailed him as the second coming of Madara due to his strength, skill, and talent. If they had someone like him in their ranks, then they were very dangerous indeed and not to be underestimated for any reason. What do they want the Biju for, he asked, since he failed to understand that part, knowing full well that the various villages guarded their respective Biju most jealously given that they are considered military assets. If this Akatsuki group was serious about collecting the beasts, then this meant they would undoubtedly go into conflict with the majority of the shinobi nations themselves. Not sure. They haven't been very forthcoming about their motivations, though I don't think it really matters why, so long as you don't allow them to succeed. You don't want them to get all of the Biju and see what happens, do you? She asked at the end, which prompted the blonde to quickly shake his head negatively. Good. If I were you, I would train very hard and prepare for them. Might also be a good idea to seek out your fellow Jinchuriki and unite under a single banner, or at least tip them off, Aburo suggested before turning on her heel and leaving as she made her way towards the restroom door. Hold on a sec. Why are you telling me all of this? You seriously don't have an angle, he asked, since he didn't understand the femme fatale's motivations and reasoning, still not believing that she was telling him without some form of ulterior motives. And why no specific reason? Though I will mention this and consider this a little bonus piece of advice: just because a war has been declared as being finished doesn't mean that it is actually over and done with. She spoke in a cryptic manner which left the Uzumaki with even more questions, though he doubted that he would get much more out of her on the subject. However, there was one other question he wanted to ask her. Can I ask you one more question? Naruto asked, causing Aburo to pause at the door and turn back towards him with a raised eyebrow. You are seriously pushing the limitations of my generosity, but I'll indulge you since you're quite endearing. Shoot, the redhead stated while folding her arms under her ample bosom, giving him a look that said, this is the last question, you'd better make it count. Do you know someone by the name of Felicia? Young-looking girl with pink hair, red eyes, pointed ears, and keeps calling herself Feli, he asked. Once he gave the name and description, Aburo's haughty demeanor cracked as she paled an almost chalky white color and she suddenly started shaking like a leaf in the wind. Her lips quivered and moved about as she seemed to be mouthing something to herself. If the whiskered teen was reading her lips correctly, it seemed as if she had said to herself, dead men walking on my grave. Once she had broken out of her stupor, her entire demeanor became deathly serious. Stay away from Felicia. She is as dangerous as she is unpredictable, was all she said to the Uzumaki, and then quickly turned her back to him and whispered to herself what sounded like, can't believe Edwin Black sired that little hellspawn. Who is Edwin Black? Naruto asked, making Aburo freeze up when she realized she had spoken the name aloud and cursed herself with the slip of the tongue. Instead of responding further, she simply vanished out of sight by dashing through the door. He tried to follow after her, but she was already gone, leaving him all alone. Well, that was an odd reaction. Why did Aburo act in such a way? He frowned as he made his way outside to meet with Sakura, who was impatiently tapping her foot with her arms crossed beneath her. She noticed him approaching and asked, you okay, Naruto? You took a pretty long time. I was actually wondering if I should call up a posse to track you down. He chuckled at the small joke and shook his head before replying to her, sorry for keeping you waiting. I got held up by Aburo. Upon hearing the name of the treacherous Taimanin, the Orangette drew her twin blades with a growl. Where did she try anything with you? Was she bothering you again? Sakura asked quickly as she began scanning the surrounding area. The blonde held up his hands in a placating manner. Relax, nothing major happened. She came by to tell me about some stuff, he responded while looking around carefully, unsure if anyone might be listening, and since he didn't want to take any chances. What Aburo shared with him seemed like a pretty sensitive topic. What kind of stuff? The tomboy Taimanin asked as she sheathed her blades, not liking the fact that Aburo had been speaking to the Uzumaki while she and her sister weren't around to keep him safe. I don't think it's a good idea to talk in the open. That aside, it'd be easier if I talked to both you and Asagi at the same time instead of having to repeat myself, he replied, earning a nod of understanding from the younger Igawa sibling. No problem. We can talk about it later at home. Anyways, it's time for training. Yes, training. I, Sakura Igawa-sama, shall be training you lots today. She spoke excitedly and pumped her fist in the air while trying to lighten the mood. There's something else. I asked Aburo about that Felicia girl and she seemed to know her but wouldn't say anything about it except that she was dangerous. She then slipped something about someone called Edwin Black. We tried to ask at the end, hoping that she might know something about this man, but he was cut off when Sakura clapped her hand over his mouth and letting out a loud and hissing shush noise. Don't speak that name, she shouted, her expression clearly showing that she was quite disturbed by this. Don't ever speak that name so loudly and casually, she whispered urgently while looking around as if checking to make sure no one had heard him. She then slowly removed her hand from his mouth, his expression of clear confusion as she checked around once more before sighing. Naruto-kun, that name is taboo. We're not supposed to talk about that. She spoke with a deep frown. Naruto could only blink his eyes at her reaction. Seriously, just speaking a name is taboo? Why? As if sensing his unanswered question, she took his hand and whispered to him, come on. There's something I want to show you. She then gently guided him to an unnamed destination, her face still set in a grim frown as she led him away. Her usual fun and bubbly demeanor now gone. Uzumaki wanted to ask where they were going, but decided not to since he would find out soon enough. From what he could tell, to get this sort of reaction from two different Taimanin, this was undoubtedly a serious subject. With Asagi, the Almighty Taimanin sighed tiredly as she walked through the halls, her heels sing against the floor as she entered the mission assignment office. There, she found the Sandaime sitting behind the desk, only he wasn't alone as there were two females there. One was a young girl with green hair and red eyes with some sort of horn protruding from her head and pointed ears. The girl had a blank look on her face as she seemed to be drawing circles on the floor with her finger. Was the horn some sort of accessory? Was it real? It was hard to say, and it didn't seem polite to ask about it either. The other woman wore an elegant crimson dress with a black fur lining. She had crimson hair and yellow eyes, her aura and demeanor exhibiting pure haughtiness. She seemed to be some sort of aristocrat or perhaps even a noble. The crimson-haired woman seemed to take notice of the brunette's presence and gave a little smirk as she spoke. Well. It seems someone new has come to greet us. Oh, a very famous person. Asagi Igawa, the legendary Almighty Taimanin. At this, Hiruzen cleared his throat and spoke up. Yes, indeed. There was an awkward silence as the Taimanin looked between the Hokage and the new visitors and considered asking if she should come back in a few moments. However, the aristocratic woman then spoke in a somewhat offended tone. Hokage Dono, don't be rude. Introduce us to the lovely lady. At the red-haired woman's request, the Sandaime sputtered for a few moments before managing to clear his throat and then began to speak. Yes. Of course, Asagi, may I introduce the Lady Astaroth, the new advisor to the Fire Daimyo, along with her own private bodyguard Noah Brown. Noah then gave a nod in greeting, though Astaroth merely gave a smug grin as she paced about slowly, acting almost as if she owned the place as she spoke. The Daimyo told me to come here because he has certain concerns with your village's academy. Since the airing of that Uruka man's little tantrum, the Daimyo is worried that perhaps the next generation of shinobi may not be up to par. After all, unreliable ninjas are bad for business. Yes, I assure you, Astaroth-san, the situation is well in hand, and that the Sandaime tried to explain, but was silenced when the crimson-haired woman placed a finger to his lips and shushed him while using her free hand to pick up a pen and began twirling it around her fingers. Save your excuses for someone that cares. If you have done anything at all, it was only after you were forced to do so. However, the real problem hasn't yet been addressed, as if one teacher was capable of bending or breaking the rules to suit his agenda, then surely others must be doing the same. From my understanding, there is very little oversight of the curriculum or the teachers, meaning that a teacher's bias can easily slip through, Astaroth stated with a scathing look on her face. It was at this moment that the Almighty Taimanin decided to pipe in and speak. I have some concerns as well. Both myself and my sister personally oversaw the academy exams for a certain class. The clan heirs all performed well, but many of the civilian students seem to be struggling. I am deeply worried that perhaps they aren't being trained properly, in which case they would struggle even further on their chosen sensei's test. Even worse, if by some means that they manage to pass and become fully realized genin, then they won't be prepared at all for real missions or combat. Oh, is that so? Astaroth asked with a raised eyebrow, still twirling the pen between her fingers as the Hokage seemed to be clearing his throat. A little bead of sweat trickling down his forehead as he replied, I assure you both, the Academy's curriculum was designed for all students from all walks of life So in other words, the curriculum was standardized. The crimson-haired woman interrupted the Sandaime, briefly stunning him as she continued, if you allow the students to wallow in a comfort zone instead of pushing them to work harder and attain greater heights, then it is no wonder why they are struggling. Very worrying indeed. The aristocratic woman stalked towards the Hokage with an almost predatory gaze, forcing him to slowly back up against the desk as she pushed the tip of the pen rather hard against his as she asked him, how do you propose we fix this? Hokage Dono, if you cannot give me a solution, then I'll just have to whisper a few choice words into the ear of the daimyo. I promise you, you will not like what I will have to say either. If I may, Asagi cut in, eager to add her 2 cents and her own ideas as she spoke up. I think that the curriculum needs to focus less on lectures and written theory and should have more practical lessons such as first aid or survival skills. The students should also be more heavily drilled in combat techniques such as kenjutsu and taijutsu and taught more offensive ninjutsu to better protect themselves. The basic 3 academy jutsu alone certainly aren't going to cut it. A sound suggestion, the crimson-haired woman remarked with a smirk, giving the brunette a nod as she continued twirling the pen in her fingers while her bodyguard stood silently. The Sandaime seemed ready to protest but was cut off when Astaroth jabbed the pen up one of his nostrils, pressing it painfully up into his sinuses. Sorry, were you about to say something? Not interested. I had heard stories of a famed shinobi known as the Professor who was said to have mastered many jutsu. I do not see that man. I see an ailing bag of bones that has lost his spine and spent too many years pushing papers. You bore me. The aristocratic woman stared at him for a few moments with her golden eyes, and for a split second, she seemed to seriously contemplate jamming the pen up into Hiruzen's skull, but then changed her mind at the last moment and allowed it to slip from her fingers and drop to the floor with a clattering sound. Asagi-san, if you would be so kind, I want you to draw up new plans for the Academy's curriculum and present it to an emergency council meeting. Hokage Dono, I shall leave it to you to set the meeting. Do not disappoint me any further. Now then, before I excuse myself so that I may indulge in a long and hot bath, are there any other issues that need to be addressed? Just team assignments. I have here the results of all the students along with some personal notes. 2 students in particular, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke, may be in need of some major reevaluation. The blue-haired Taimanin responded as she set down the necessary paperwork for the Hokage to peruse, all the while hoping that he'll take the matter seriously. I'll look into it, Hiruzen muttered as he retreated to safety behind the desk, took his seat and then began going through the necessary paperwork while trying his best to not look directly in the daimyo advisor's direction. If that is all, then I must be going. No, we're leaving, Astaroth announced, with the green-haired girl giving a bored yawn as she followed behind her mistress. Asagi hummed quietly to herself as she observed the 2 departing. She couldn't put her finger on it, but there was definitely something strange about them. But what? Elsewhere. Well, that was an interesting exchange, Danzo muttered as he d his chin, having observed the interactions between the Almighty Taimanin, his old rival, and of course the daimyo's newest advisor via footage provided by hidden cameras. From what he knew, this Astaroth woman and her little bodyguard appeared in the daimyo's court about a month or so ago. Surprisingly, there was very little else known about them. Even Aburo's vast information network in collusion with his own couldn't find further information. It was almost as if the 2 had just randomly stepped out of thin air and into existence. The grizzled veteran wondered if Astaroth could be a potential ally, but she was an unknown variable and a wild card. Further observation would be required before making an informed decision. On a more positive note, if the Hiruzen was currently in the daimyo's crosshairs, then that could be a good thing if it resulted in the Sandaime getting booted clean out of office. The only problem was that would leave a power vacuum, and the most likely candidate to fill it would be none other than Asagi Igawa herself. Her strength, intellect, popularity, and reputation practically made her own coronation a sure thing. Even so, having someone like her as Hokage wouldn't be a bad thing so long as she didn't dig into his business. You're late, he muttered in irritation upon hearing the door to his office open as Aburo stepped in with a small frown. I'm not one to be summoned like some mongrel pup, she muttered in equal irritation, but was waved off by the aged warhawk with a small sneer. Evidently you are. At any rate, I have a distinctive feeling that my old rival's tenure as Hokage will not last much longer. In which case it'd be beneficial to put more competent and reliable people in key positions. You, Aburo, would be an ideal candidate for Konoha's next spymaster, Danzo stated as he leaned back in his seat, his words earning a little twinkle in the treacherous Taimanin's eyes. She had long desired a more prestigious role, and becoming Konoha's officially designated spymaster would be perfect for her, especially considering information was her business. Most unfortunately, the position was currently held by the Sandaime student, the Toad Sannin Jiraiya. Aburo was strongly confident that the Sannin in question didn't actually earn the position, but rather the Sandaime handed it to him as special treatment. Oh, what was that word used to describe that type of thing? Nepotism. Yes, nepotism was the word. I'm surprised that you don't want the position for yourself. She spoke casually, and for a brief moment a fur of amusement seemed to cross the aged warhawk's features. A tempting prospect, but I'm much more comfortable acting behind the scenes. That aside, you are an element that I can control, and any information you gather as spymaster will be funneled to me, all the while I shall have plausible deniability if you get caught. He spoke in an even tone, his words making Aburo frown. Of course, she was only being used as a scapegoat if things went south. Also, I am aware that you had a conversation with the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He then added, making the femme fatale scowl deeply as she asked, were you spying on me? On you know, though lately I have had my own Anbu keep a closer watch on the Jinchuriki since he came into Asaga's care. Hiruzen was a fool to let that boy's talents go to waste in some watered-down classroom. Danzo answered bluntly and then gave Aburo an expectant look, silently demanding what she spoke to the boy about. I see. Well, if you're that concerned about it, I told him about Akatsuki. She responded with a shrug, her words earning a small hum of thought from the aged veteran. While he didn't approve of Aburo going behind his back like this or speaking to the Jinchuriki about sensitive topics without his permission, this was not unacceptable. If the boy had some advance warning of such a dangerous group, it would only push him harder to get stronger and become a more powerful weapon for the village. Anything else, and why did you tell him about Akatsuki? Danzo asked in an even tone, though the question did make Aburo hesitate for a brief moment. Should she mention that the boy asked about Felicia or that she let slip Edwin Black's name? No, nothing else. As for why, no special reason. Perhaps I felt like giving him a sporting chance. Maybe I have a soft spot for young boys. Does it really matter? Regardless, I strongly doubt that the Sandaime or Jiraiya would have ever told the boy anything. Aburo answered while completely omitting the rest of her conversation with the Uzumaki. True. Hiruzen is often too cautious or indecisive while Jiraiya is unreliable at best. Danzo answered bluntly, not even trying to mask his contempt for the two. Is there anything else, or did you just want to waste my time with a little meet and greet? Aburo asked impatiently, since contrary to whatever Danzo may believe, she did in fact have far better things to do. After a few brief moments of contemplation, the warhawk slowly nodded and answered, yes, there is something I need you to do. With Naruto and Sakura. The Uzumaki felt uncomfortable with the uncharacteristic silence coming from the tomboy Taimanin, but still he obediently followed her as she took him through an area that he didn't recognize that was at the edge of the village. They passed through thick bushes and into a clearing where the ground was uneven and covered with moss. He didn't have to wait long before Sakura revealed their destination by stopping in front of an old and scorched-out building. It would seem that a great fire had taken place there some years ago. It almost seemed like some sort of laboratory. "What is this place?" the Jinchuriki asked, with the Orangette sighing as she crossed her arms beneath her bust and replied this was the first and original laboratory where Taimanin were created. "It is where me and Big Sis underwent the procedure where we met Edwin Black. What happened here exactly looks like something bad happened." "Who's this Edwin Black guy and why is it that you and Aburo didn't want to talk about him openly?" the whiskered teen asked, brimming and burning with questions. Edwin Black was the man who came up with the Taimanin initiative. It was his brainchild. He was the one that made it possible for humans to be injected with the Kyuubi's yakai and become literal super soldiers. A few years back, there was some sort of accident. A fire broke out and Edwin Black died in the blaze. However, shortly after his death, it was discovered that he had been in business with the rogue Sanin Orochimaru and had been selling village secrets to him. Afterwards, the Sandaime had all records about Black expunged and erased, effectively erasing him from history. Since then it has become taboo amongst Taimanin to ever mention his name again, Sakura explained, and for a few moments she seemed to get lost in her memories. "Were you guys close to Black?" the Uzumaki asked, earning a chuckle and a shake of the head from the Orangette as she replied no. "Me and Big Sis only met him one time, the day we became Taimanin. He was something of a recluse and seemed to be buried in his research." The Jinchuriki gave a nod of understanding, then asked why did the Hokage want to erase him? That seems kind of extreme. He didn't want word getting out around the village about how one of the top scientists in Konoha was yet another bad apple in the history of Konoha's greatest gone bad list. He also feared potential backlash towards us Taimanin if people got in their heads we may have colluded with Black and may be compromised. We were far too valuable to throw away and a lot of resources had been poured into making us, so the Sandaime decided it would be best to bury the whole thing and swear us all to silence. You, however, are now partnered with both myself and Asagi. I figured it'd be better for you to know about this than keep you in the dark. She answered him with the whiskered blonde slowly absorbing this information. "I see. Well, I promise not to tell anyone about this and thank you. It means a lot that you're willing to trust me with this." He spoke with a soft smile and approached to take her hand, but then heard a soft crunch beneath his foot, making him look down and see a picture frame that was half buried in the ground and covered with a thick layer of moss. "What's this?" the Uzumaki murmured as he knelt down, brushed away the moss, picked the frame up and dusted it off before showing it to the Orangette. The two looked at the picture. It looked like a small group of people in an office celebrating together. One was a man well-dressed in a white lab coat holding a glass of champagne, the form of Aburo Didi over his arm, and seemed to be clearly flirting with him. "That man, who is he? Is that in Black?" the whiskered teen asked for confirmation, earning a quick nod from the younger Igawa sister. "Seems Aburo was really into this guy," he mused as he continued inspecting the photograph. He then recognized the form of a younger Urukaha. It seems that douchebags attract other douchebags in this case. The final figure in the picture was one that he immediately recognized as wait, that's her. "That is Felicia," he stated as he pointed at the pink-haired girl in the photograph. "You're sure?" Sakura asked, prompting the Jinchuriki to quickly reply, "No doubt about it. That's definitely her. Hard to miss that pink hair, but what is her connection to Black and why hasn't she aged since this picture was taken?" he asked the last part in a murmur, his blue eyes narrowing in thought. It would seem that he had learned a little more about the Taimanin initiative, but now he only had more answers. Now that he thought about it, Aburo did say something strange, sighing that little hellspawn were her exact words. Only one conclusion came to mind: Felicia was Edwin Black's child. If that was the case, then just what was her game? Who did she work for? I think we need to show this to Asagi. There's definitely more going on than we know, he suggested, earning a quick nod from the younger sister. It would seem that even from beyond the grave, the legacy of Edwin Black would still haunt the Taimanin.